Hello everyone, and welcome to the penultimate chapter of the Tower of God Hell Train arc, where we will be covering the Hidden Floor saga. This arc is probably the most action-packed out of all the arcs within this long mega arc. If you do enjoy this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Now let's get on with the video. Our story picks up exactly where we left off at the conclusion of the Floor of Death arc, as Bomb and his group's encounter with Karaka seemingly activates the key to the hidden floor. It flashes in bright white light, and Karaka recognizes the artifact in front of them. Everyone from Barrel to Sachi to Boro can only shield their eyes, as the key continues to emanate searing light. A moment passes, and everyone inside the room notices that the doors to the hidden floor are slowly opening. By the time they fully swing wide open, everyone inside the room is suddenly sucked in. And just like that, the doors to the hidden floor close yet again. Bomb wakes up to find himself floating in a vacuum. He wonders where all his friends have gone, as he finds himself alone in this empty space on the other side of the door. But there's no time for questions, as a warrior resembling a toy clad in full armor and wielding a sword and shield lunges at Bomb out of nowhere. Bomb dodges the toy warrior's attack only to see that there's an entire platoon of them coming after him. And all the boy can do is wonder what the heck is going on right now. In another part of the hidden floor, Coon, Hockney, and Dorsey aren't doing so hot either. They find themselves being attacked by the same creatures, as Coon uses his lighthouse to shield his party from them. Coon tries to ask Hockney if he could use his eyes to locate their companions, especially Bomb or even just Rachel. But unfortunately, Hockney tells him he can't see anything at all, because right now, Hockney's feeling the blowback from being transported to the hidden floor, as he grips his abdomen and gripes about how he might throw up. Seeing this, Dorsey puts matters into her own hands and channels Bong Bong's powers to transport them to Bomb's location. Meanwhile, Coon notices that more and more toy warriors are popping up and they're about to get cornered. All of a sudden, Dorsey successfully summons Bong Bong, but it does not so much teleport her to Bomb's location as it does send her falling through the void. In another part of the hidden floor, we find Yura fending off the same toy warriors by walloping them with her magical baggage. We also discover that she's with Rachel, who does something useful this time around and shields the both of them from their attackers. And like all the other people who just got transported to this mysterious place, Rachel wonders what on earth is going on. Then Rachel and Yura start to hear a voice who admittedly sounds excited that people have entered the hidden floor using the key. The two girls turn around to see that this voice is coming from a giant scale, who tells them that it's its job to show them their true selves equally. The giant scale appears before all the others too. It introduces itself as the scale of the past before declaring that it's going to show everyone their past and generate both the place where they need to go as well as their sworn enemy. As is typical of Tower of God, we get an exposition dump from the scale of the past where it tells everybody that it's going to generate its readings based on each of the characters' respective pasts. On top of that, none of them could refuse or change what the scale tells them, since its predictions will have already been determined by the characters themselves. Coon also notices that the toy warriors have suddenly retreated the moment the scale of the past appeared. And with that, it gets on with the show, as it tells Coon and every new visitor in the hidden floor that it will now show them themselves using its mirror to determine where they must go. It only takes a few moments before the scale of the past tips to one side and tells everybody that it's ready to tell them its findings, and that if they want to find out what fate awaits them, they should head inside. Everyone from Sachi to Wanyan gets this announcement. Weirdly enough, the scale of the past tells almost each and every one of them the same thing, that they should head for a place called the King's Cradle. That is, except for Bomb. As it turns out, the scale of the past registers him as having no past at all. Because of this, it declares Bomb as a threat to the hidden floor. As a consequence, our hero is going to be placed under quarantine. All of a sudden, the metal wire swirled around the scale of the past unfurls and coils itself around Bomb. Bomb feels it pulling him by the leg and towards the mirror within the scale of the past. And just as he's about to get sucked into it, Dorsey appears aboard Bong Bong. She continues to fall until she lands right on Bomb, and the couple both get absorbed into the scale's mirror. We then find out that long ago, Jahad sensed that he would soon become a godlike being after succeeding in a revolution on the train, so he sought to leave his still human self somewhere inside the train. One of the disciples from the workshop found out about this, and in turn, the disciple gave Jahad an object called the Mirror of the Past as a gift. That mirror is said to have had a mysterious ability to store a person's present self within it. Jahad was pleased upon receiving this artifact, and he wasted no time trying to store himself in the mirror. According to the narrator, Jahad saw a bright flash of light when he looked into it, and it's rumored that he felt great satisfaction and wonder when he looked upon a version of himself in the world within the mirror. Several of Jahad's companions followed suit after hearing this mysterious news. After all that, Jahad then decided to place the mirror in the last room aboard the Hell Train so that only those who have cleared all of its challenges can see the world within the mirror as well as Jahad's own previous self. From then on, Jahad ascended to power after conquering the tower and becoming something similar to its god. But something mysterious happened to the disciple from the workshop when they went back to the train. The disciple gazed into the mirror and found out that all the stored data from Jahad and everyone else who had cleared the train and looked into the mirror had started to create their own world within it. This disciple then decided to protect this new mysterious world, Since then, a spell of oblivion was placed in the secret room where the mirror was stored so that whenever those who have stored themselves within it reveal anything about this place, they forget about its existence. Apart from that, the disciple created a single door that led to this hidden floor and created a couple of keys that could open it. They gave one to Jahad and the other to the administrator of the train. From there, Jahad dubbed this secret place as the hidden floor. Somewhere else, we see Rak still standing at the beach with his companion as he looks at the gigantic door floating above the sky. The door opens and Rak sees Coon and Hockney falling through it. Of course, Rak immediately notices his old friend, while Coon and Hockney brace themselves for impact. Things get dicey when Coon and Hockney notice that a giant serpent is waiting for them to fall into its mouth. A second later, and the two get gobbled up by the beast. So Rak springs into action in an attempt to save Coon and Hockney, while his companion watches in awe at how brave this crocodilian warrior is. Rak lunges at the giant serpent with his spear, but just like Coon and Hockney, he gets swallowed whole. Coon and Rak then finally reunite when they come across each other inside the belly of the beast. Meanwhile, in yet another part of the hidden floor called the treatment plant for quarantined elements, an unconscious Bauman and Dorsey have found themselves inside a room with a trap ceiling. A voice declares that all quarantine threats must be eliminated as the trap ceiling drops down on them. However, it's revealed that Bauman and Dorsey weren't crushed by the contraption. Instead, they've been wrapped in a protective bubble, which then floated them away from danger. More curious is the fact that this force field bubble belongs to none other than Ranker Yu Han-sung, the old test director of the second floor. Han-sung then tells himself that waiting here all this time has finally paid off now that he's found Bauman and Dorsey. Not long after that, Bauman and Dorsey wake up in a secluded area where Han-sung happily greets them. The two prepare for a fight after recognizing who he is, but the air clears when Han-sung explains that he's not the Yu Han-sung from the outside world. Instead, he's the data of regular Yu Han-sung, the one that was stored inside the mirror prior to him becoming a ranker. For this instance, we'll be calling him Data Yu. Data Yu then explains that this is an imaginary space within the hidden floor and that he's a data human, the data of Yu Han-sung from the past. Data Yu then tells him that this is the first time that he's met Bauman and Dorsey, but he's known for a long time that they would come here. This explains why he's been hanging around the quarantine area for so long. When Baum asks how he got that idea, Data Yu just tells him that it's just some kind of intuition he had, like he heard it somewhere. From there, Data Yu tells him to come with him before the toy warriors swarm their location. While this is happening, Coon and Rak catch up with each other while inside the belly of the giant serpent. Rak tells Coon that all he remembers is that there was a tremendous flash, and when he came to his senses, he was already in this place. At first, Rak thought he had died, but he's not so sure about that anymore. Hearing this, Coon wonders if there are more passages connecting this place to the outside world, but it's all just guesswork to him for now. Rak then asks Coon where Baum is, to which he tells them what has happened up until now. Rak then tells his companions that it's about time they leave this filthy beast. As we find out, Rak has been trying to defeat this giant serpent ever since he got here, but this is the first time that he's going to attack the beast from the inside. So Rak uses his powerful spear to pierce the beast's gut. It works after a fashion, and although it doesn't take out the giant serpent, Rak's attack is enough to give its tummy the grumbles and force it to throw them up. The creature's stomach acid almost melts them, but they make it just in time to escape through the monster's gaping maw. From the beach, the girl who was with Rak earlier spots the three dudes and decides to help them with the help of someone named Goliath. Meanwhile, even Coon couldn't believe that the monster is still alive even after getting its insides stabbed with a powerful spear like the Mad Shocker. Shortly after that, the girl arrives with Goliath, who happens to be a large sea turtle. She introduces herself as a wandering minstrel who's going to guide them, and her name is Miam. Goliath then ferries Miam, Coon, Rak, and Hockney back to the beach, as the giant serpent retreats to the bottom of the sea. Miam thanks Goliath for helping them. On the other hand, Hockney tries to be polite when he assumes that Goliath is going back to the sea, but it ends up offending the turtle because in truth, Goliath rents property in this place. Miam then approaches Coon and asks him if they're warriors who have arrived here after clearing the train. As she puts it, everyone who clears the train and comes to this place is called a warrior, and her job is to record their adventures. Miam confirms that Coon and his friends are inside the hidden floor, remarking that it's a bit strange that they arrived through the door in the sky. That's because the usual procedure here is that people are summoned in a place called the town. Coon then tells her to lead the way, as Miam guides them toward the town in hopes of meeting their other friends there. While trekking, Miam reveals that she's not the data of someone who cleared the train. Instead, she's made up of data that was generated for this place exclusively. On top of that, there are more others like her in this place. Coon presumes that she and everything around them are fake, but Miam clarifies that everything here is real to her because she lives in this place. But more importantly, she warns Coon to be careful. According to her, if you make a mistake here, you might end up running into your sworn enemy. Miam then gives an exposition dump about how everyone who has looked at themselves in the mirror before coming here is given a sworn enemy in order to balance things out within this place. Your sworn enemy is pretty much your equal in every aspect. As Miam puts it, the system generates a sworn enemy based on someone you've encountered in the past most of the time. Miem also reveals that the giant serpent from earlier is Rack's personal sworn enemy in this place. Except it was generated out of Rack's very own strong sense of identity. In other words, it's an enemy that Rack has never even met before. Coon then wonders what kind of sworn enemies he and Hockney might have. Somewhere else, Data U continues to guide Bauman and Dorsey. The two deliberate on whether they should trust the guy, to which Baum says that they have no other choice. Besides, Baum lets Dorsey know that he has a feeling that Data U genuinely does not want to hurt them. All of a sudden, a toy soldier hiding underneath the floor tries to attack them, but Data U instantly dispatches it with a single blow that decimates both its needle and eye. Baum notices this and recognizes that Data U is a pretty powerful guy. Meanwhile, Data U asks them if they're here to meet Young Jahad. He then informs the two that they're currently in the quarantine area of the lowest floor, which happens to be the farthest place from where Young Jahad is. Still, he reassures them that they'll eventually get there with his help. On the other hand, Data U also informs them that there are very specific conditions for leaving this place, not to mention that they'll be constantly chased by the toy soldiers most of the time. Still, Data U tells them not to worry about it because he's there to protect them. However, he does admit that there is someone that causes him a bit of concern. Bauman and Dorsey's assigned sworn enemies. Data U then pretty much tells Bauman and Dorsey everything that Miem told Coon in his party earlier. The only new bit of information here is when he tells Bauman and Dorsey that the scale of the past sometimes generates sworn enemies based on either your fears, someone you long for, or in rare instances, it summons an exact copy of yourself. Unknown to them, the scale has just generated Baum's own sworn enemy. And just as Data U hinted at, it happens to be a mirror image of Baum in his jovial grace form. In addition to that, the scale announces that you must eliminate your sworn enemy in order to preserve the balance of the hidden floor. Baum and Dorsey and Data U eventually reach a place called the Spiral Staircase inside the quarantine area. All the while, Data U continues to dump more exposition about their sworn enemies, but at least there are a few new bits of information he provides this time. 1. Any sworn enemy is able to instinctively detect your location. 2. A sworn enemy is most likely to appear sooner than later for anyone who's quarantined on the hidden floor. And 3. There's a rule that states your sworn enemy will just keep getting generated no matter how many times you destroy them. And Dorsey whispers to Baum about her suspicions that Data U might be his sworn enemy. He overhears this and reassures the two that he's not. Besides, Data U tells him that you instantly sense it whenever you're faced with your sworn enemy. He concludes his exposition dump by telling them that they have to get out of here as soon as possible, because if not, Bauman and Dorsey might not ever get to leave this place again. All of a sudden, Baum feels an electric buzz, and Dorsey asks him what's up, and he tells her that he just felt something weird. Unknown to him, his sworn enemy is already nearby. And as if on cue, Baum's sworn enemy walks up to the group. It appears Baum did not hear a word of anything that Data U just told them, because he starts to act all surprised that he's seeing his doppelganger at this moment. Somewhere else, Miem continues to lead Coon's group toward the town and have found themselves hiking up a mountain. Miem reassures them that they're almost there, but the group stops when Coon spots a gigantic horned creature that looks like it's been carved out of stone. Miem informs them that it's called the Fruit of Good and Evil. Another exposition dump comes when Miem explains that it's a quarantine place for the most dangerous and evil people on this floor. As she puts it, the Fruit of Good and Evil is said to eat the fruit it's holding and punishes you if you lead a life of evil. On the other hand, if you live a good life and win the fight against evil, then the giant drags the fruit into a very deep underworld to keep it there from returning to the surface. In addition to that, warriors who achieve this are able to proceed to a higher level stage. Miem also lets them know that she's cleared this stage numerous times now, since she has guided other warriors in the past. She then asks Coon to raise his hand and say, "Show me a stage that I can move to." Coon does so, and a virtual user interface appears in front of him showing what stage they're in. Right now, Coon's group is in Stage 0, aka the Town of the Wandering Minstrel. Long story short, much like most other activities in the tower, this is all just a game. You clear the stage and you proceed to the next one. Learning about this, Coon assumes that Young Jahad will most likely be in one of these stages. Miem then tells them to check their pockets, and Coon and the others are surprised to find that they suddenly now each possess a pocket watch. However, Miem educates them that it's not a watch. Instead, it's a device called the Good and Evil Monitor. It basically tallies up all your deeds on the floor. If you're a bad egg, then the monitor becomes gradually darker with each evil deed you do. The goal here is pretty much to be a goody two-shoes so that your monitor doesn't become engulfed in darkness. Moreover, if you manage to eliminate the entire black part on the monitor, you get a chance to eliminate the fruit of good and evil. However, if the monitor's black part exceeds more than half the meter, then your sworn enemy starts pursuing you. Ominously, Miem also tells him that if your monitor becomes filled with black completely, something very scary is going to happen. Coon processes all this and concludes that they just have to do good deeds on this stage so that they can move on to the next one. Back at the spiral staircase, a dumbfounded Baum's brain finally finishes buffering and realizes that his doppelganger is a sworn enemy. His sworn enemy then charges at them and hits Bauman and Dorsey with blasts of Shinsu. Bomb recognizes that his sworn enemy has just used Blue Fury when it hops onto a Shinsu platform, the same one that he uses to move around the battlefield. Bomb and his sworn enemy face off, while Dadayu does his companions a solid by leading Bomb's sworn enemy right underneath the trap ceiling. Dadayu springs the trap and attempts to crush the doppelganger, but Bomb questionably rescues it before it gets crushed. Of course, this makes Dadayu ask Bomb what the hell he's doing. But as we soon find out, Bomb shows us how much of an honorable fool he is when he decides to deal with a sworn enemy all by himself. The two get into a scuffle as Endorsi and Dadayu look on. Bomb realizes that he and his sworn enemy have the exact same power levels, but what he doesn't understand is the actual concept of what a sworn enemy is. That's because instead of trying to defeat it, Bomb starts trying to convince it to team up with his group. Obviously, his sworn enemy tells him that it's its job to take him out, so no, he's not going to join Bomb's party. In fact, even Dadayu catches on that Bomb might be a little slow on the uptake. So he steps in and informs the boy that there's no way your sworn enemy will want to become friends with you, since they're data humans who cannot refuse the system. Bomb's brain tries to process this, while Dadayu realizes that his unwillingness to play by the system's rules will make it harder for Bomb to eliminate his sworn enemy. On top of that, he surmises that Bomb is probably not on good terms with his outside self, the original Yu Han-sung. All of a sudden, a tremor rocks the spiral staircase, while Bomb tells himself that he doesn't want to take out his doppelganger in the middle of their fisticuffs. His sworn enemy answers this by giving Bomb a much-deserved uppercut to the chin. It rocks Bomb, but he tells Endorsi he's all good and that he has a plan. Bomb hops on the Shinsu platform and blasts the ceiling with Shinsu to create a smokescreen that would cover his approach. It almost works, but their fight is interrupted when a giant toy soldier bursts through the spiral staircase. Dadayu tells him that this is the first time he's seen a toy soldier of this size and advises everyone to get the heck out of this place before things become even more dangerous. The giant toy soldier then blasts him with an I-beam, which forces the group to retreat. Bomb makes another dubious decision when he decides to bring his sworn enemy along with them, but instead of getting a thank you, the doppelganger tries to backstab Bomb when they land. The attack only doesn't connect when a guy named Batis, who also happens to be a friend of Dadayu, manages to knock out Bomb's sworn enemy with a dart before he can land a blow on the boy. He then asks Dadayu if that's the hero who will free them from this place. Somewhere else, Coon, Rak, and Hogni finally reach the town of the Wandering Minstrel. It looks like a typical fantasy RPG hub and seems peaceful enough. From a distance, Boro and Sanchi spot their friends coming into town while they have a couple of pints. So they head over to the main entrance and reunite with Coon and the others. In fact, Boro is super happy to find out that Rak has not bitten the dust. On the other hand, Coon realizes that both Boro and Sanchi must have lost their memories of the hidden floor, as per the rules of this place. What's more interesting, however, is how each and every citizen of the town of the Wandering Minstrel pretty much treats its visitors as heroes. A group of villagers surround them and sing their praises until a pretty woman approaches and tells Coon and the rest of the warriors that they're the great heroes who will win against the demons isolated in the fruit of good and evil and send them to hell. The woman introduces herself as Dee, the head of the town of the Wandering Minstrel. She continues to go on her spiel about how Coon and the others will save their village before asking if they're ready to take on the challenge. Boro informs Coon that Dee pitched them the exact same thing when they arrived in town, but they initially refuse, thinking that Dee is suspicious as heck. But Coon knows what's up, so he agrees to Dee's proposal. Right after that, Dee pretty much becomes a designated quest giver of the town, as she hands Coon and his group a scroll containing a quest. As she puts it, warriors may complete stages by performing quests and earning enough good deed points. To test the waters first, Dee gives him a low-level grade E quest called Hunting the Screaming Plant Monsters. She then explains that you just need to scan the quest code on the scroll and the quest will promptly start. If you complete the objective of any given quest, you earn good deed points. And if you gather enough of them, creatures called the Big Breeders will give you a scroll for the so-called main quest, where you banish the fruit of good and evil. Coon and his group change into more comfortable clothes, and he's surprised to find out from Boro and Sanchi that warriors like them actually get free stuff here. They then scan the quest code and begin the hunt for the screaming plant monsters. All the while, we get confirmation that Bomb and Endorsi are trapped inside the fruit of good and evil. Batis and Dadayu continue to lead the two through a large corridor, and Batis informs them that the giant toy soldier they encountered earlier must be the captain of the guards. It only appears when the system registers a dangerous threat in the stage. As always, Endorsi gets all mouthy and expresses her suspicions about Dadayu and Batis. In reply, Dadayu tells the two that they could relax because Batis is a really kind guy in spite of his appearance. They eventually reach a door at the end of the tunnel, which reveals a place called the Shelter, the so-called Seed. A guard asks Batis who Bomb and Endorsi are, and he informs men that they're the heroes they've been waiting for. They then enter the shelter where a little girl named Medley, who happens to be Batis' daughter, greets her dad. A couple of guards then take Bomb's unconscious sworn enemy, while Batis leads them inside the shelter. All the while, he tells Bomb and Endorsi that they have to escape the fruit of good and evil before the heroes from the outside clear the stage. Somewhere else, Coon and his group wrap up their low-level quest and earn 50 good deed points for their efforts. Miam explains that when the evil gauge is gone, they'll get a chance to try completing the grand quest. Back inside the shelter, Bodice has just told Bauman and Dorsey how the fruit of good and evil works. We've already heard it earlier from Miam, and Bodice pretty much tells him the same thing. But here's the thing. No matter how you look at it, Bodice and everyone else trapped inside the fruit of good and evil end up getting screwed over. If the heroes from the outside beat the challenge, they get buried underground. If they fail, the giant eats the fruit with them still inside. This process happens over and over again, as Data Yu puts it. Things take an even more tragic turn when Baum asks Bodice how he ended up inside the fruit of good and evil. It's backstory time, as Bodice tells him that he used to be one of the wandering minstrels from the town. As we already know, wandering minstrels are meant to sing about their world and lead the warriors while on this stage. On top of that, Bodice informs us that wandering minstrels were created partly to worship the big breeders. And if you were wondering about that, it turns out that the big breeders are basically the rulers of the hidden floor, similar to an administrator from the outside world. One day, Bodice learned the truth about the big breeders when he saw one of them and a couple of toy soldiers wailing on a citizen of the town. They then did something to the guy that brainwashed him so that he'd start singing praises about the big breeders again after taking huge beatings. This enraged Bodice, so he became kind of a revolutionary. He started writing songs and singing about the truth behind the big breeders. This resulted in the rest of the wandering minstrels unlocking repressed memories within themselves that showed how the big breeders are almost just as scummy as someone like, say, Rachel. Gradually, the wandering minstrels rose up in revolt against the big breeders, which prompted these overlords to raise their town and violate its citizens. Ultimately, they reset each and every wandering minstrel's memories, except for Bodice and a few other people. Then came a time when a big breeder accosted Bodice and decided to punish him for inciting a rebellion with his songs. From there, Bodice was sent to the fruit of good and evil, and here he is. But that's not all. As a final insult to the big breeders, they even ripped Bodice's mouth. And just to show you these guys are evil, they also place a curse on Medley, preventing her from learning how to properly speak. Bodice then tells Baum that he has one goal, to escape this place and get his revenge on the big breeders. Outside, Miam tells Coon that this stage culminates with a grand quest where they have to defeat a champion villain summoned by the big breeders themselves. Miam then dumps more exposition about who the big breeders are, but it's pretty much padding that retreads everything we just heard from Bodice. The only relevant bits of information she provides here is that it's rumored that the big breeders are able to adjust other data, making them basically gods to the other data humans of the hidden floor. Aside from that, Miam tells them that it's rumored that the big breeders were just regular data humans like them in the past who one day exceeded their limit using their own willpower. Hearing all this, Coon wonders if the big breeders know where they could find Young Jahad. And with that, he tells his group to continue earning those sweet, sweet good deed points. Somewhere else, a big breeder talks to someone via a mirror. The person on the other side tells him to watch out for the new rivals to the hidden floor, referring to Baum and his friends. We also find out that this big breeder has captured Rachel, who lies unconscious in bed. Most interestingly is that the big breeder reveals that he's talking with none other than Young Jahad on the other end of the mirror. Back at the Seed, a couple of guards talk about how this is the first time Medley has ever seen a sworn enemy. Still, they're not too worried, since they're pretty sure Bodice's dart would keep Baum's doppelganger out of the picture for a few days. Meanwhile, Data Yu and Bodice debrief Bauman and Dorsey about their grand escape plan. As it turns out, they found an exit that will free them from the fruit of good and evil after looking it up for so long. In addition to that, we find out that the Seed is right at the center of the sphere, and it's the only place within the fruit of good and evil where toy soldiers can't enter. Data Yu even reveals that it took them literally several lifetimes to find the perfect escape route. As such, they've managed to cut down their travel time from the Seed to the exit to a quarter of a day. Plus, if they decide to take the long way around, they'll just need a single day of travel to get there. However, Data Yu tells them that the only reason they haven't sprung this plan is because the exit itself is currently sealed off. This explains why they need Baum, since they think he's the only person who can break through it. He then tells the two that warriors from the outside usually take around a week to clear the stage. On the other hand, Data Yu flexes a bit and tells them that a genius like him could clear it in about 2 days. Data Yu goes on to explain that taking the shortcut would mean there's a high chance they'll come across the giant toy soldier, so he advises they take the long route for safety purposes instead. Back at the town of the Wandering Minstrel, Coon checks out the village quest board with Miam, a cute critter with one eye named Jong, who also happens to be the quest scroll manager, tells him to choose whichever quest they want but warns him that the higher the difficulty of the quest, the more dangerous it gets. Miam recommends Coon take a D-level quest, since the last one they did was already an E-level adventure, but Coon is not having any of that newbie crap, so he picks the highest quest level available on the board, which happens to be C-level. Miam isn't so sure about this idea, but Coon insists that this is the fastest way they can meet the big breeders, so he opens the scroll and scans its quest code. A giant octopus then appears on top of one of the town's buildings after that. Dee approaches the group and informs them that this creature was summoned by a previous hero who came to the town and has since become a nuisance to its citizens. And hear this, it's an octopus king named Octopus Kim. Coon and his gang then prepare to attack Octopus Kim, thinking that this would be a walk in the park. That is until the creature starts spewing ink and threatens to flood the entire town with it. Coon uses his lighthouse to shield Boro and the others. It works, but Octopus Kim puts pressure on our heroes when it tries to smash through Coon's force field. To make matters worse, we find out that Coon can't use Enacor right now, since Beta landed somewhere else on the hidden floor. Somewhere else, a big breeder sees a scuffle going on and decides to rig the game by increasing its difficulty. This results in Octopus Kim getting a power boost, which allows it to break Coon's lighthouse. Octopus Kim then lunges at the group, which forces Coon to order a tactical retreat. Back at the seed, Bomb urges Daddy Yu to take the shortcut even though it's a more dangerous path. As he puts it, they'll need all the time they could get, since his friends are more likely able to clear the entire stage in a couple of days or less. Daddy Yu reluctantly agrees with Bomb's plan, but they're interrupted when an explosion occurs nearby to reveal that Bomb's sworn enemy has reawakened. Daddy Yu can't believe that Bomb's doppelganger is already up and about after taking a shot from Bottas's gun. Things heat up when the guards inform Bottas that his daughter is still inside the room from which Bomb's sworn enemy emerged. So Bottas rushes in to try and shoot Bomb's sworn enemy again and knock the guy out. He misses his target, as Bomb's doppelganger teleports right in front of him. However, Bottas is saved when Bomb jumps in to get back at his sworn enemy with a crisp uppercut to the chin that sends him flying. This gives Bottas enough time to rush over to the room where Medley's in, but more crap hits the fan when the giant toy soldier bursts through the seed ceiling along with a few regular-sized ones. Dada Yu sees this and realizes that even the seed is not safe for them anymore. Meanwhile, Bottas finds that Medley's unharmed when he reaches the room. Dada Yu and Dorsey and the guards fend off the toy soldiers as Bottas fetches his daughter and reunites with his allies. On the other hand, Bomb's sworn enemy gets cheeky and tries to sneak in a right straight to his face while his back is turned. Now Bomb has had enough of his sworn enemy at this point, so he summons his thorn and tells the doppelganger to knock it off before he knocks him out. As he puts it, he may be the same person as Bomb, but if he harms anyone else, he'll never forgive him. All the while, Dada Yu shows us how much of a genius he is when he comes up with a plan to rescue everyone living in the seed. He tells Dorsey to grab Bomb and get out of here while he leads the rest of their companions out of their former home base. Dada Yu then reveals that he rigged the seed with explosives for this very occasion. Dorsey goes along with the plan and uses Bong Bong to get to Bomb's location. Plus, she tries to knock some sense into his foolish little head and tell him to forget about trying to rescue his sworn enemy. It works too, as Bomb ultimately agrees to go with Dorsey and escape the seed. With everyone cleared out, Dorsey tells Dada Yu to set off the charges. The seed explodes, taking the toy soldiers and Bomb's sworn enemy with it. Shortly after, Dada Yu informs the group that he didn't just plant bombs within the seed, he also made sure to set up charges along its exits to make sure nothing escapes it. But Bomb being Bomb, he starts to get all glum about his sworn enemy, which prompts Dada Yu to tell him to buck up because, like he told them before, sworn enemies don't really die. They just keep getting resummoned whenever they're taken out. So Dada Yu assures Bomb he'll see his doppelganger again. And just to make sure Bomb stops racking his brain about it, Dada Yu gets his head back in the game when he informs Bomb that his main focus should be fighting the big breeders. That's because they're the henchmen of Young Jahad created specifically to prevent anyone from finding him on the hidden floor. Back in the town of Wandering Minstrels, Boro, Sachi, and the rest of their team recover from Octopus Kim's previous attack. As you'd expect, Rack tries to lunge at their target without so much as a plan, which only gets him a face full of black ink. Octopus Kim continues to shoot them with ink, as Boro asks if Coon could use Enacor to subdue their enemy. But there's no luck on that end. Instead, Coon comes up with an alternative plan to defeat the creature when he spots a tall chimney nearby. He then orders Sachi to help them get to the top of the chimney with the help of his vines. They reach their destination after dodging a few salvos from Octopus Kim, and Coon reveals his plan. Specifically, they're going to lure Octopus Kim inside the chimney and trap it with Boro's fishing lines and hooks. To do this, they're going to have Hockney act as bait. Coon is pretty confident with this scheme, so he tells the group to make the necessary preparations. Shortly after, Octopus Kim lunges at Coon and the group, which forces him to use his lighthouse's force field once again. But just like earlier, Octopus Kim gets another power-up from the big breeder and breaks through Coon's defenses and heads straight for Hockney. The plan almost fails when they notice that Hockney might not make it in time for Boro's hooks and fishing lines to ensnare Octopus Kim. Thankfully, Sachi comes up clutch and uses his vine to subdue the giant octopus before it could reach Hockney. So it all works out in the end and they succeed in completing the quest. Curiously, Coon checks on his monitor to see that the gauge has already gone all the way down, meaning they're now eligible to take on the stage's grand quest. Miam can't believe that a sea-level quest could bring the darkness gauge down this quickly, leading her to suspect that the quest difficulty was adjusted or something. All of a sudden, a gate opens in the sky, and Dee recognizes that it's the one that the big breeders use. A big breeder steps out of the gate and greets the citizens of the town of Wandering Minstrels, calling them his jesters. The big breeder introduces himself as Chung, the manager of this hidden floor. He then congratulates Coon and his group for clearing the previous quest and becoming worthy of taking on this stage's grand quest. As a token of his appreciation, Chung orders the townspeople to sing something for them. This prompts the wandering minstrels to form a flash mob and go on an impromptu musical number praising Coon and his team's achievement. Inside the Fruit of Good and Evil, Dorsey complains that it'll probably take them about a quarter of a day to get out of here. On the other hand, she could just use Bong Bong to leave the others and help Dada Yu, Bomb, and herself escape the sphere. However, Dada Yu tells her that although she has a point, he does not want to abandon his brothers in arms, especially considering everything they've been through. They suddenly feel another tremor rock the sphere, and Dada Yu knows that it signals the arrival of the big breeder outside. The former residents of the seed start to panic, as Bomb asks Dada Yu what they should do now. Bodice proposes that they go ahead without the others, but Dada Yu doesn't want to go along with this plan. However, one of the other seed residents, Bon, speaks for everyone else when he tells Bodice and the others that it's alright. Dada Yu and the others can go ahead without them. After all, they know the way out of the Fruit of Good and Evil. Dada Yu tries to convince Bon otherwise, but the guide tells him that each and every one from their group would rather take the risk instead of just letting everybody perish without even trying to escape. Plus, they express their sentiment that they fully trust Bodice and Dada Yu to defeat the big breeder and help everyone get out of here. Dada Yu is convinced, so he tweaks their route to get to the exit much faster. With everything set, they hop on Bong Bong, while the rest of their companions march toward the exit. Unknown to them, a freaky man with a fang coated with gold grins as if he knows this will all be useless. Outside, Chung presents Coon's crew with a scroll containing the stage's grand quest. Before he opens it though, Coon asks him if he knows where they could find Young Jahad. Chung tells him he has no idea and they just have to find out for themselves. Still, Coon knows Chung is hiding something from them. The big breeder then presents them with the grand quest, and it curiously involves defeating an extremely weak D-level creature called a mother long-tailed tit. Even Miam is confused when she sees this, while D thinks Chung is planning something sinister behind the scenes. Chung then informs Coon's team that he specifically chose the mother long-tailed tit as their grand quest as a way to apologize for the quote-unquote accidental rise in difficulty level when they faced off against Octopus Kim. In truth, Chung actually chose this weak creature so that Coon and his team could easily defeat it, because if they do, everyone who's currently inside the Fruit of Good and Evil will be trapped there forever, which is exactly what he and Young Jahad wants. On the other hand, Coon starts to get all paranoid and thinks Chung is up to something shady. He's not quite sure what it is, but he has a feeling that the mother long-tailed tit is stronger than it looks. Meanwhile, Dada Yu and his group blow a hole inside the Fruit of Good and Evil that gives him a straight shot to the exit. They then jump into the hole as Bomb wishes that his friends don't complete the stage's grand quest just yet. Outside, Coon and his team get into an argument about whether they should attack the mother long-tailed tit. From a distance, Chung notices that Coon is the kind of person who can solve difficult problems well, but has a hard time solving them the easier they get. As he puts it, he would have just summoned a higher level villain if he knew this would happen. Still, Chung is confident that Coon's team would end up finishing this grand quest sooner than later, which will prevent Bomb and the others from escaping the Fruit of Good and Evil. Inside the fruit, Bomb and the others finally reach the exit. Dada Yu tells them that the big breeder specifically put a door that none of them could open just to mock the Fruit of Good and Evil's prisoners, but he's confident that Bomb could solve this problem for them. And solve it he does, as Bomb pops the door off its hinge and allows them all to get out of the giant prison with the help of his Shinsu black hole sphere technique. Dada Yu reflects on Bomb being the guy he's been waiting for and mentions his father, V. On the other hand, Chung receives news of this and starts to panic a bit. Dada Yu, Bodice, Bomb, and Dorsey finally reach the outside world within the stage, as Bodice reminisces about the past where we see him presenting one of his songs to a woman named Rose. While this is happening, one of Chung's assistants asks him what their next move should be now that Bomb and the others have made it out of the Fruit of Good and Evil. Chung can't believe that his prisoners were able to destroy the door in spite of the fact that he created it with power he borrowed from Young Jahad. As such, no data human should have been able to open it. Chung starts to suspect that Bomb had a hand in it. Still, he keeps this information to himself for fear of causing a stir on the hidden floor. So he decides to use his trump card, which is to awaken the giant holding the Fruit of Good and Evil. All the while, Bomb and his group run along the fruit's surface. Bomb remarks that the sphere looks smaller from the outside, to which Dada Yu tells him that it's because the Fruit of Good and Evil entire data was compressed. Simply put, you shouldn't trust the rules of space-time in this place. They stop in their tracks when they notice the giant waking. Dada Yu is puzzled that the creature has been activated even though the grand quest of the stage hasn't been finished yet. As such, he concludes that all that talk about the giant only waking up from its slumber with the help of good deeds is a lie. In truth, it's just another one of Chung's soldiers. The giant then attacks them, and Bomb and his group are forced to go on the defensive. Bomb checks the battlefield and realizes he has to target the giant's body to stop it. So he decides to team up with Dada Yu so that he could amplify his Shinsu and blast their enemy with it. Dada Yu uses his trademark Han Sung-Yu style amplification skill, Boiling Mass, to augment Bomb's Shinsu, as they prepare to launch a powerful wave of energy towards the giant. On the ground, Coon and Rat get into an unsurprisingly heated argument about what to do with the mother long-tailed tit. As usual, Rak gets all aggressive and tries to do things his own way without so much as a single thought behind it. Coon stops him by giving the crocodilian warrior a solid rear naked choke. They then turn around when they hear a loud explosion coming from the fruit of Good and Evil's location. Chung lies to them and tells Coon's group that the giant has awakened because they took too long to finish the grand quest. On the sidelines, Miam tells Dee that she hasn't heard of any such rule, which just further convinces Dee that the big breeder is planning something scummy. She's right too, because it turns out that Chung has been double bluffing all along. As he puts it, he hid a powerful villain inside one of the mother long-tailed tit's eggs. This way he could take out Bomb and his group as well as Coon and his crew. He then urges them to finish the mother long-tailed tit already. Back at Bomb's group, his and Daddy-U's joint attack works spectacularly as it damages the giant. Daddy-U even jokes about how he and Bomb make a great team, but they get back to business when they tell Dorsey to teleport them right above their enemy so that they could deliver another amplified Shinsu blast right at its head. Meanwhile, Coon gets all the more pressured when Boro urges him to make a decision. This gives Rak an opening to whack Coon with his spear and attack the cute little bird. Before he could connect though, an energy blast rocks the side of the village. In the aftermath, Coon and his group see that Bomb and Dorsey, Daddy-U, and Bottas have arrived on the scene. Bomb looks over to see Rak and he couldn't be more pleased to find out that his old friend is still alive. On the other hand, Chung starts to regret sparing Bottas' life all those years ago, given what's happening now. Inside the fruit, the other residents of the seed see the hole that Daddy-U and his group made, so they decide to jump through it, believing that it will lead them to the exit. However, the same man with the gold-coated fang earlier emerges from behind the group and starts blustering about how he would have made Daddy-U a princess of Jahad if he were a woman. The group sees the man and recognizes that he is not part of their team. The hooded man tells them that he's the guy who selects and raises the noble talents who inherit the king's blood, meaning the princesses of Jahad. And now, he's someone's sworn enemy. The residents of the seed think the old man is lying, since they should have felt it if he was truly a sworn enemy generated by the system. The old man replies by telling him that it's probably because he's unique before babbling on about how he's an individual who both exists and does not exist, and how he is a so-called strand of countless lives. He then declares that now is the time for the hunt to begin, as snake-like creatures pour out of his mouth and start taking out scores of the seed residents. When he's done flatlining each and every one of them, the creatures coil with one another to form a pale-skinned guy who looks much younger than the man from earlier. The guy talks to himself and is amused that his ability works before deciding to get the heck out of there before the entire quarantine area disappears. At the town of Wandering Minstrels, Bomb expresses how happy he is to see that Rak is alive and gets the rest of his friends up to date with what has happened to him and Dorsey up until this point. After listening to all of this, Coon finally catches on that his group would have taken out Bomb if they proceeded with the grand quest. Miam asks Dee who these new arrivals are, but what's more interesting is that we learn from Bottas that Rose and Dee are one and the same person. Bottas then prepares to snipe Chung. At the same time, the big breeder spots Bomb and orders his toy soldiers to go after him. Daddy-U sees this and tells Bomb to go through the door behind Chung and reveals that the big breeder in front of them right now is a fake. According to him, the real big breeder is behind that door in the sky. Daddy-U comes up with a plan to get Medley as far away from the battlefield as possible with Dorsey's help, while Bomb passes through the door when Chung gets distracted. They then spring into action, and Chung notices that things are starting to get dicey. So he releases the villain he hid in the mother long-tailed tit's egg to reveal a giant sludge monster with one eye. It's so ugly and grotesque that even the mother long-tailed tit wonders if it's really one of her babies. On the other hand, Coon feels absolutely vindicated knowing that he was right all along. Nearby, Bottas and Chung have a standoff where the big breeder pretty much just talks trash about how Bottas isn't an awoken warrior. He's just a defective product. In response, Bottas tells him that he's happy that he's defective, since it made him realize that he's a human being who has the ability to think for himself. Chung and Bottas then clash, and Bomb takes this opportunity to rush toward the door. However, Chung catches on and blocks his path. Bomb tries to hit him with a Shinsu black hole sphere, but he's shocked to see the big breeder block the powerful attack. Chung even expresses his outrage after seeing Bomb imitate the power that Young Jahad and the Ten Lords use. He tries to stab Bomb with his spear, which forces him to block it with Shinsu. But again, Bomb notices his Shinsu dissipating right before his very eyes when Chung comes into contact with it. He's then knocked back when Chung counters. The sludge monster starts to wreak havoc on our heroes. To make matters worse, it's specifically targeting the mother long-tailed tit to prematurely finish the grand quest. Daddy-U tries to stop it, but he's too slow. Thankfully, Coon jumps in to protect the poor little bird with his lighthouse before the sludge monster could attack it. As Coon says, he doesn't know what's going on, but he's pretty sure they're not supposed to beat the grand quest right away. Daddy-U hears this and praises how quick Coon's wits are. Meanwhile, Dorsey catches Bomb to break his fall. Chung gets distracted for a second after seeing how cool Dorsey's teleportation ability is. This leaves him open for Bottas to shoot him with his rifle, but Chung dodges it. We then find out that Bottas' firearm is loaded with bullets made specifically to take out data humans. What's more is that Chung gave it to Bottas himself just to mess with him in the past. Still, this doesn't make Bodice back down, as he starts spraying Chung with more bullets, but Chung just keeps on dodging and talking smack about his data human killing bullets are pretty much useless if they can't hit their target. Meanwhile, Bauman and Dorsey decide to provide Bodice with some much needed backup in order to land a bullet on Chung. So Dorsey uses Bong Bong to flank the big breeder. Eventually, Dorsey manages to use a technique called Bong Bong 40%, separate movement to redirect the trajectory of one of the bullets. It's super effective too, as Dorsey catches Chung with a clean headshot. But to their surprise and disappointment, Chung doesn't perish from the bullet. Instead, his wound instantly heals right in front of Bauman and Dorsey. He then catches Baum off guard and stabs him in the gut with his spear. As Chung reveals, he was just lying to Bodice when he said that these data human killing slugs could actually take him out. Sure, it works on other data humans, but not him. At the same time, we find out that Rachel has finally awakened inside the real Chung's room. As for the real Chung, we discover that he's been controlling the fake one via a VR headset inside his room. Back in town, the fake Chung starts talking smack to Bodice again, while Rachel wonders where the heck she is and who the guy with the headset is. Fake Chung then does something super dirty, as he teleports Dee to his side and uses her as leverage against Bodice. We also get confirmation that Bodice and Dee used to be married. Just to prove a point that the other data humans of the town of Wandering Minstrels are just his puppets, Chung asks Dee if she wants him to kill her. As if caught in a mind control spell, Dee says yes. Baum tries to rescue Dee, but Dorsey holds him back. Again, Dorsey acts as the voice of reason for Baum, telling him that she's just data anyway. Chung prepares to stab Dee with his spear. To prevent this from happening, Bodice locks on Chung and shoots him with his rifle. But Chung is slippery as hell. Instead of stabbing Dee, he uses the woman as a meat shield that catches Bodice's bullet. Everyone's in shock as Rose is taken out. And you know things are really bad when Rachel does something unintentionally useful, as she starts acting like the entitled little brat that she is, taking off the real Chung's VR headset and demanding answers from the guy. The fake Chung then disappears into thin air, as Rose's body freefalls hundreds of feet toward the ground. We immediately find out that the reason fake Chung ceased to exist is because Rachel took off the real Chung's VR headset. Inside Chung's room, Rachel asks him if he was playing a game. Caught by surprise, Chung fumbles and tells Rachel that it's something like it and that he'll explain everything later. He then asks her for his VR headset back. But you can always expect this entitled little brat to impose on her host, as Rachel outright refuses to return Chung his property. And in true Rachel fashion, she starts scheming and plans a way to use Chung's VR headset to her advantage. Rachel then acts like the worst guest ever and starts walking towards the door in spite of Chung's protests. And when she opens it, she sees that they're in a city in the middle of a huge ocean. Back in the town of the Wandering Minstrels, Bodice cradles Dee and calls her by her other name, Rose. All the while, Coon checks in on his best friend about his wound, but Baum reveals that it's already healing. They suspect that his regenerative abilities come from the thorn. Their whole team is only left with more questions upon deliberating on everything that has happened up until this point. At the same time, Bodice says his final goodbyes to Rose, who has no memory of their past together. Bodice pretty much tells her how much he loves Rose, and she passes on shortly after. Daddy Yu then walks up to Coon and Baum to ask them for a private word. They go into a room where Daddy Yu tells him that he knows where Chung's real body is. To find it, they have to move on to the next stage before fake Chung reappears here. Coon asks him if they should just take out the poor mother long-tailed tit to finish the grand quest, but Daddy Yu tells him that wouldn't be necessary. He then goes on to tell Baum and Coon his origin story. According to him, Daddy Yu really wanted to meet someone on the hidden floor. He never did so in spite of wandering around the stage for a long time. Then came a point when the real Yu Han Sung had to get off the hell train. Left alone in this virtual world, Daddy Yu started asking questions about the hidden floor. For one, why is it controlled by the big breeders? For another, why do they have complete control over all the rules? His curiosity eventually got the better of him and Daddy Yu started to test his theories about the hidden floor. He did this by joining up with other people who came to this place and increasing the black part on his monitor. That was when Daddy Yu discovered that there was a hidden grand quest that you could pursue, one that's not received from the big breeders. Daddy Yu believes that the regular grand quest is just another ruse being perpetrated by the big breeders to prevent data humans from finding the true path. In fact, they specifically created the Wandering Minstrels to keep an eye on any data human who arrives here. Eventually, Daddy Yu tried to complete the hidden grand quest but ultimately failed to accomplish it. He ended up escaping to the quarantine area after that, where he started waiting for Baum's arrival. On the other hand, Daddy Yu tells him that he did find out something big back when he was trying to finish the hidden grand quest. And that's the fact that the real bodies of the big breeders are in an entirely separate data world from the one they're in. This other data world happens to be the same one where Rachel has found herself in. Chung then keeps his promise and tells her about everything he knows. First, this place is unimaginatively called the Hidden Floor. Young Jahad and his companions originally created it to separate themselves from the other hidden floor when they noticed that more and more data people were being created within the mirror. Someone from the outside world then helped Young Jahad and his companions to put this plan into action by delivering another mirror to the hidden floor and having them face each other. This allowed Young Jahad and his underlings to create an entirely new hidden floor, and so the Hidden Floor was born. Rachel hears all this and wonders if Young Jahad lives in this world. Chung then clarifies that the world inside his VR headset links him to the other hidden floor. And no, it's not really a game, since it's Chung's job to manage it. That is to say, he's tasked with making sure that no other data humans are able to cross from there to the hidden floor. Rachel then asks Chung why she ended up here instead of the other hidden floor, to which he says he has no idea. All he knows is that some mysterious power brought Rachel to this place just a few minutes before Bomb and the others entered the hidden floor. However, we find out that Rachel was able to access this world with the help of the divine sea fish that Gustang gifted her, although she still has no idea that she possesses this powerful creature. Rachel thinks that yet another special chance has just landed on her lap by being transported here. And as you'd expect, she screws over Chung and still refuses to give him back his VR headset even after he held up his end of the bargain. Instead, Rachel wheels and deals as she asks Chung to make a copy of her in order to meet some people from the train on the other hidden floor. Chung tells her that's possible, but he highly recommends not doing it for fear of getting themselves into trouble. But he's about to find out how much of a nuisance Rachel is when she storms into his home and uses his VR headset. Because, as Rachel puts it, she really needs to hang on to her companion's coattails if she's going to face Young Jahad. Rachel then gets greeted by a HUD welcoming her to a character creation screen. Like most other live service games, it asks her for a username and takes her to a character customization screen. Rachel goes through the process and gets transported to the other hidden floor shortly after. Fittingly, she emerges in a dirty alley with a large rat in front of her. Not long before that, we see that Daddy U has just debriefed Bomb and the rest of his crew about everything he knows of the big breeders and the hidden floor. His theory is that the giant door where the fake big breeders appear leads to that other world. However, he advises that confronting the big breeders is a bad idea, given how strong they are. Luckily, he knows someone who could lead them there without the need for a head-on confrontation against them. We find out that the person Daddy U is referring to happens to be the only remaining data human belonging to one of the leaders from the 10 great families. As such, they're going to beat the hidden grand quest and go meet this person. Everyone agrees, and Daddy U instructs Bomb on how to access the quest scroll for this hidden quest with the use of a monitor. Bomb is surprised to find out that he has the gadget in his pocket, and more surprisingly, that they're already eligible to access the hidden grand quest. He opens the scroll and sees a picture of a giant rat on it. Daddy U then instructs him to scan the quest code and a swarm of giant rats appear in the middle of town. Daddy U tells him to deal with the vermin and asks Dorsey to help teleport him to the quarantine area. Not long after that, Bomb and his friends link up with Boro and Sachi to face the giant rats in the middle of the village. They make quick work of the critters, but Hockney notices that one of them escaped. This giant rat is faster than the others as it zooms toward the same dark, dirty alley where Rachel's avatar was transported. We then find out that Rachel unsurprisingly created an idealized version of herself via the avatar. Instead of making herself look like a freckled sleazebag, Rachel turned her avatar into an attractive elf lady with powers to boot. Bomb witnesses Rachel's avatar take out the giant rat, and our boy has no clue that he's come face to face with Rachel. Rachel chooses to keep her real identity a secret from Bomb in an attempt to leverage it against him, so she introduces her avatar as Icarus. But as you'd expect, she's not smart enough to follow through with the line and starts fumbling for answers when Bomb asks her if she's a data human. This just makes Bomb think that Icarus is suspicious as hell, so he just excuses himself from this awkward encounter when the mirror appears and informs him that he and his team have successfully cleared the current stage. Rachel tries to ask Bomb to let her tag along, but he has no time for her crap, so he hops on his Shinsu platform and leaves her alone in that dirty alley. Meanwhile, Daddy U and Dorsey arrive in front of the wreckage of the Fruit of Good and Evil. She asks him why he's just standing there, to which Daddy U says that he has a bad feeling about something. Rightfully so, because the nest of snakes who took out his friends from the seed has just appeared. Dorsey instantly recognizes who it is, as one of the snakes greets her. On the other hand, Dorsey knows that this is her assigned sworn enemy. According to her, this creature is called the Snake Charmer, but it's just a nickname. All of a sudden, the snakes take out one of their own, and we find out that the entire nest operates like a hive mind. Since one of them became hostile, all the others decided to kill it so that all the others could maintain control of the technique. Data U, being the smart guy that he is, correctly surmises the same thing. The Snake Charmer then tells Dorsey that it doesn't plan on harming her, and when she asks what he wants, the Snake Charmer tells Dorsey to take him along with her. In the creepiest way possible, the Snake Charmer tells Dorsey that it will eliminate anyone who doesn't get along with her and reveals to her and Daddy U that he took out every single person he found in the quarantine area. Daddy U gets enraged after hearing this, while the Snake Charmer gets into his head by telling him that he just wanted to save everyone else, not because he was a kind person, but because Daddy U just wanted to flaunt how strong and smart he is. This makes him lose his patience, as Daddy U tries to attack the Snake Charmer, but Dorsey holds him back, telling him that even their combined powers wouldn't stand a chance against an opponent like this one. Knowing that, Dorsey is forced to agree to the Snake Charmer's terms. The Snake Charmer then hides itself inside a round crystal that Dorsey could hold in the palm of her hand. All the while, it continues to act like a total creep, telling her how he can't believe he gets to travel with Dorsey now that she's grown so much. And with that, Dorsey tells Daddy U that it's about time they got back to town. There, Coon gets all the other members of their group up to speed with what's happening. Bomb arrives to let them know they could now leave the stage and head for the next one just as Dorsey and Data U teleport nearby. Bomb asks Data U what happened to the residents of the Seed, and he tells them that they're all dead. He promises to tell Bomb more about it later. For now, they should just focus on getting to the next stage. Data U then fetches Bonus and apologizes for failing to save their friends from the quarantine area. But Bonus doesn't blame you. Plus, Bonus vows that he'll make sure to create a better world for the data humans who live here once they get resummoned when new warriors arrive on the stage. Just before leaving, Mia asks Bonus what she should do now. Bonus tells her that she'll forget everything anyway, since the big breeders will wipe her memory. Bunny asks her to look after Rose while he's gone. Lastly, Bonus promises Miam that the day will come when the only songs about the truth will be heard in this town. Shortly after, Data U, Bodus, and Medley link up with Bomb's group to leave for the next stage. Unknown to them, Rachel is befittingly acting like a rat, as she skulks around and realizes she missed her chance to join the rest of the group. And in a rare moment of lucidity, she even acknowledges that she has no idea how she'd explain why she looks like a beautiful elf maiden instead of a raggedy ginger to Bomb and the others. So she does what she does best, trying to force herself into the group just as Bomb and his friends activate the scroll leading them to the next stage. Thankfully, it seems Rachel is too slow to catch up to them, as Bomb and the rest of his friends are greeted by the mirror, which asks them to select which stage they want to go to next. Daddy U tells Bomb that he'll choose, since he knows his way around the other stages. More interestingly, he reveals that the data human of the Great Lord they're looking for happens to be none other than Coon Edahn, the leader of the Coon family. Coon, of course, isn't too comfortable upon finding this out, but Data U reassures him that Data Edahn is from a time when he was just a regular, so he won't recognize Coon anyway. Meanwhile, Bada stews in the thought of how the big breeders deceive them like this. Data U then proposes that they split their group into two teams to avoid the big breeders' attention and accomplish their goals. Team A, made up of Data U, Coon, Bomb, and Dorsey, would face the big breeder and look for their other allies. Team B, made up of Boro, Sanchi, Hockney, Rak, Batas, and Medley, will be tasked with searching for Data Edahn. Everything seems to be all set until Rak protests that he should be on Team A as well. With no time to deal with his tantrums, Data U agrees to let Rak switch to their team. After that, Data U tells everyone that Team A will head over to a place called the Cold Land, while Team B will travel to the Sweet Castle. And in order to keep in touch with each other, each team leader will use their measuring device to save the faces of their respective members by scanning the stage card. That way they could easily link up once their respective missions have been accomplished. On top of that, Data U tells them that Team B shouldn't have a hard time locating Data Edahn, since they have a wandering minstrel like Badas leading the way. However, he adds that the Sweet Castle stage can't be reached even if they beat the Big Breeder's Grand Quest, since it's a hidden area. Plus, Data Edahn could detect anyone who sets foot in Sweet Castle. Coon asks Data U if Data Edahn would ever talk to them once they find the guy. In response, he informs Coon that Data Edahn usually doesn't interact with other data humans, but they're different. Data U reveals that he made a promise to Data Edahn in the past, so he'll talk to them this time. When Coon tries to probe Data U about what this promise is, he just acts coy and tells him that it's a sad one without getting into any detail. With everything set, the two teams bid each other good luck and they each proceed with their respective tasks. Back in the town of the Wandering Minstrels, Rachel's avatar is suddenly pulled out of the hidden floor when Chung cuts off the power to the VR headset. This begs the question why he didn't just take off the headset in the first place the moment Rachel wore it, but it nonetheless yields results. As you'd expect, Rachel acts like the pest that she is and starts having a tantrum, demanding Chung to put her back online. But Chung puts his foot down and tells her to shove it. As he puts it, he'll end up dead if another big breeder finds out that someone else used his VR headset. We also find out the sad story behind Chung, as he tells Rachel how he ended up on the hidden floor. It turns out that he's not here out of his own free will. He's actually trapped here after Young Jahad assigned him to become a big breeder. He reveals that he used to be just another data human on the hidden floor until Young Jahad summoned him and sent him here. The condition was that he's never allowed to leave his apartment building on the hidden floor. More depressing is the fact that he is actually the only person who lives in this building. Chung had tried to leave this place several times in the past but repeatedly failed. According to him, the only way he could be free from this place is if he gets replaced by another big breeder. However, that's far from happening, since there are two other big breeders aside from Chung. He tells Rachel that he doesn't really know who these other big breeders are, but they've been working in this capacity far longer than he has, effectively making them his superiors. What's more is that these two other big breeders have tremendous power and also seem to know Young Jahad well. Long story short, if they find out that he let his VR headset get used by another person, he's toast. Chung goes on to tell Rachel that the other big breeders may not have noticed her logging onto the system earlier, but if she tries to bring other people to the hidden floor, then it'll definitely catch their attention. Of course, a scummy sociopath like Rachel doesn't empathize with Chung's sob story. Instead, her takeaway from all this is that Chung kept her here because he needs help getting out of this place. So she does what she does best, try and offer Chung a deal. Somewhere else, Bomb and the rest of Team A arrive in the Cold Land where they see a tower far off in the distance. They hear loud thuds coming from that direction. Unknown to them, Barrel is causing all this noise by repeatedly punching the tower. Cherry's with her too, and we find out that they're trying to get into the tower to complete the stage's grand quest. Barrel eventually gets tuckered out after wailing on the tower's walls to no avail. She takes a break while Cherry analyzes how impenetrable the structure is. All of a sudden, an anthropomorphic bull named Juck approaches them and tells the two women that he'll tell them how to beat this quest. Juck also happens to be one of the other big breeders Chung mentioned earlier. At the same time, we see that Team B has also arrived in Sweet Castle, where a tower shaped like an ice cream cone stands in the middle of a desolate wasteland. In an unknown spot, Data Edahn is informed by someone that outsiders have broken into their hidden stage. Back in the Cold Land, Juck instructs Barrel and Cherry to just destroy the foundation of the pillar where their target is hiding so that they could finish their grand quest. Barrel gets all excited and thanks the big breeder for doing her team a solid, and we see that their objective is actually to take out a calf living somewhere inside it. Meanwhile, Bomb's team comes across the lifeless bodies of large white rats and immediately figures out that their friends have gone through here. They then realize that their allies must have been the ones who caused the ruckus coming from the pillar, so they decide to head over there using Bong. In the meantime, Cherry uses her strong gale technique to try and blow away the dirt supporting the foundation of the pillar. It works, but Barrel tells her teammate that they have to dig some more, since the structure is embedded deep in the soil. Cherry volunteers to do this, noticing that this grand quest has gotten her fired up. Not too far away, Bomb's team watches Barrel and Cherry doing their thing from Coon's lighthouse. Daddy recognizes Juck and surmises that he must be overseeing Barrel and Cherry's quest. Hearing this, Bomb doesn't think and instead prepares to stop their friends from accomplishing their task. However, both Coon and Daddy stop him from doing anything reckless, advising him that the wisest thing to do right now is to disrupt Barrel and Cherry's quest without getting caught by the big breeder. As Coon and Daddy put it, all their problems would be solved if they could finish their own mission while delaying Barrel and Cherry as much as possible. To do this, Daddy proposes that they split their team into two. One would be in charge of secretly sabotaging Barrel and Cherry while the other finishes their grand quest. After some arguing on who should go into which team, the group settles on Bomb and Dorsey handling their grand quest, while Coon and Daddy delay Barrel and Cherry. And props to Dorsey too, because she easily puts Rack in his place when he tries to have another one of his dumb tantrums. In the end, Rack is assigned with providing fire support from a distance. Later, Coon and Daddy arrive near the pillar and see that Barrel and Cherry's target is hiding inside a small hole at the peak of the structure. They also realize that the two women are most likely trying to tilt the pillar to get to the creature they're supposed to take out, since they couldn't destroy it. Coon and Daddy brainstorm some ideas on how they could delay Barrel and Cherry's progress. Ultimately, Coon notices that the peak of the pillar where the creature is hiding appears like it's been screwed to the rest of the pillar. This means they can remove it by turning the top part of the structure. Far away, Bomb and Dorsey whip out their Grand Quest scroll, which features a picture of the monster they're supposed to take out. They activate the quest, the monster is summoned, and Bomb wastes no time to jump into action and duel with it. Somewhere else, at the hidden stage, Sachi's group looks on at the gigantic ice cream cone in the middle of Sweet Castle. They eventually decide to proceed with their mission when they're surprised by the sudden appearance of the quest scroll monster dragon. The dragon invites them to choose which quest they want to take, but Bottas tells the rest of the group to hang on for a minute. He then asks Sachi to help him get to the top of the gigantic cone on top of the ice cream tower. Bottas reaches it and shouts into the hole of the gigantic wafer stick. He first introduces himself and tells Coon Edahn that he has a message from Data, particularly that they found someone who could make Edahn's wish come true. Bottas then pleads with the Data version of the Great Lord to help them in the fight against the Big Breeder and Jahad. Somewhere else, one of Edahn's kids informs him about Bottas' call to action and asks his father what they should do next. Upon hearing this, Edahn instructs his son to bring Bottas and his group to this stage. As he puts it, it looks like the time to fight is approaching. Bottas waits on top of the cone for a bit until he starts to wonder if someone is ever going to show up. His wish is granted when Edahn's son, the same boy who received his message, appears through a portal behind Bottas. Down below, Sachi, Boro, Medley, and Hockney see the new arrival and ask who it is. On the other hand, Edahn's son also spots him and asks Bottas if they're the ones who's going to fulfill the promise to his dad. Bottas tells the truth and informs Boy that their savior, Bomb, is currently on a different stage completing his grand quest. Edahn's son weighs his options and decides to take Bottas' word in the end. He then jumps down to Boro and the others' location before telling them to pick the hardest quest available, which happens to be a B-level one. As the boy puts it, he's going to put Sachi's team on his back and finish this stage for them. While this is happening, Coon and Data spring their plan. Data successfully unscrews the top of the pillar, while Coon uses his lighthouse to teleport it someplace else. Seeing their target disappear before their very eyes doesn't sit well with Barrel and Cherry, however. On the other hand, Juck knows that something fishy is going on here. It doesn't take long for us to see Coon and Data hoofing it as far away from the pillar's location as possible. However, they're forced to stop in their tracks when Juck teleports right in front of them. As you'd expect, he's looking for a fight and instantly gets caught up with what's going on when he recognizes Data. Somewhere else in the Cold Land, Bomb has just finished dropping a salvo on the monster they're supposed to defeat for their grand quest, only to find out that it's unharmed. Bomb figures out that the creature must have really high Shinsu resistance, as he and Dorsey think of a way to defeat it. But then, the snake charmer reveals itself and creepily tells Dorsey and Bomb that he's going to help the two defeat their enemy. The snake charmer then fuses his snakes to become a person, telling Bomb and Dorsey that he could quickly defeat their target for them. Meanwhile, Rack starts to get antsy after being put on lookout duty. He ultimately decides to abandon his post when he sees Coon and Dada Yu facing off against Chuck from one of Coon's lighthouses. But Rack is about to have a nuisance in hand, as Rachel suddenly appears behind him as her hidden floor avatar, Icarus. Back at the Sweet Castle, we find out that Boro and the others have just summoned a creature called the Chrome Cutter as part of their quest. Edahn's son keeps his promise and single-handedly beats down the Chrome Cutter without even breaking a sweat using a powerful ability called Special Skill, Molino de Viento, and Spear Skill, Air Slash. Sachi and the others are impressed and ask the boy if he belongs to the Coon family too. We finally get a name for the guy, as he introduces himself as the data version of Coon Marco Asensio, a member of the Coon family's direct line. Sachi hears this and presumes that Dada Edahn must have other data people from the Coon family by his side, but we find out from Marco that Dada Edahn mostly dispatches any Coon family members who come to him in this place. In truth, Dada Edahn only leads 3 people on this hidden stage. Marco even gives Boro and the others a bit of background on Edahn, telling them that his father is a very self-centered person and that none of his kids particularly like the guy. All of a sudden, Marco receives a call from his sister, another one of the 3 Coon family members Dada Edahn has under his wing. Marco's sister tells him to hurry up and take Sachi's team to their dad before he runs off somewhere. And with that, Marco tells the group to come with him to Dada Edahn's location. Back at Bomb and Dorsey, the snake charmer stays true to his word, as he brutally takes out the monster by transforming his body into a needle and piercing the creature right on top of its dome. At the same time, Barrel and Cherry rush towards Coon and Dada Yu's location after they correctly guessed that their old ally was probably the one who stole the top of the pillar earlier. Meanwhile, Rack is initially wary of seeing Rachel's avatar in front of him, asking her why she would help him and his friends. But Rack is pretty much a gullible little crocodile, and he instantly changes his tune when Icarus offers to give his spear a special power boost. Of course, Rachel thinks this is a good thing, because she now has an excuse to worm her way into the rest of Bomb's team. We then go to a flashback from several hours ago where we see Rachel successfully duping Chung into accepting her deal. First, she tells Chung about how she just wants to go and find her teammates, referring to Yura and the others. And when he asks what exactly Rachel's ultimate goal is, she surprisingly tells the truth and informs Chung that she's searching for something that Young Jahad possesses. In the end, Chung is faced with a choice. He could either stay stuck inside his apartment building forever, or he could help Rachel in return for her help freeing himself from the hidden floor. Chung ultimately chooses to help Rachel, but warns her that they should keep their endeavor a secret from the other big breeders. Back in the Cold Land, Juck remembers the details behind how he knows Dada Yu before talking some good old-fashioned smack at the guy. Coon, on the other hand, thinks Juck probably harassed Dada Yu in the past and offers to help him get his revenge against the big breeder. But before they could finish their conversation, Juck uses his staff to summon a gigantic creature called the Stone General to attack Coon and Dada Yu. Bomb and Dorsey, Barrel, and Cherry witness the Stone General above the skies of the Cold Land from their respective locations. Meanwhile, Dada Yu tells Coon about the summoned creature before they make a run for it. Juck then orders the Stone General to rain down rocks on Coon and Dada Yu while they rush for cover. As Dada Yu puts it, the Stone General has the ability to rain an infinite number of boulders, so their only choice right now is to get clear of its attacks. All of a sudden, Bomb and Dorsey arrive right in front of the two. They inform Dada Yu and Coon that they're done with the grand quest. Barrel, and Cherry make it to their location soon after. She even tries to plead with Juck to stop the hostilities. But as the big breeder tells Barrel, he has to uphold the law. Juck then attempts to use the Stone General to summon a technique called the Lightning Storm. However, a red streak knocks Juck's staff, and Bomb and the others recognize it as Rack's Mad Shocker. A second later, Rack arrives with Icarus, who Bomb recognizes from back when they met at the village of the Wandering Minstrel. Rachel's avatar then teleports Bomb and all his allies away before Juck could strike them with the Lightning Storm technique. Later, we see that Icarus has taken Bomb and his friends to safety. This time, Rachel finally gets her act together and crafts a fleshed-out lie to make Bomb and his pals believe that she's not a threat. To do this, she introduces her avatar as the big breeder's sworn enemy. Still, it's not enough to fully make Coon and the others believe that they could trust her. On top of that, Dada Yu makes it known that he hasn't heard of any such rule stating that big breeders have their own assigned sworn enemies. Bomb defers to Coon and asks him what they should do with Icarus. Rack also tries to vouch for Rachel's avatar, but Coon knows that their old friend is a gullible moron most of the time. Regardless, Coon opts to take Icarus with them even though he's highly suspicious of Rachel's avatar. This way, they could use whatever she has to offer and just take her out if the need arises. Somewhere else, on the hidden floor, Juck's true form, which happens to be a man wearing a dress shirt, is absolutely livid after finding out Bomb's team had successfully finished their grand quest. And in yet another place, we see a data version of a female Coon family member calling out to Coon by his first name, Aguero, before telling herself how much she wants to kill him. Meanwhile, Juck wonders if he should pursue Bomb and the others on the next stage of the hidden floor, although he also knows that it would be difficult if they disappeared into the hidden stage. He then gets a call from Huang, one of the other big breeders. Juck informs Hwang about how Bomb and the other new data humans who arrived in their world have been behaving strangely. On the other hand, Hwang's only concern is whether they know the secret of the hidden floor. Juck reassures Hwang that they do, but they aren't aware of anything else other than that. However, Hwang tells him some shocking news, that someone has actually entered the king's cradle. Hwang surmises that whoever it is must be a companion of these troublesome data humans, so Hwang orders Juck not to do anything rash until their Lord Jahad gives him an order. Also, Juck is tasked with unleashing Bomb and his friends' designated sworn enemies to slow down their progress. Juck reluctantly agrees to the plan after Hwang tells him that their main priority is to annihilate each and every one of these pesky data humans. And as Hwang puts it, their top priority would be to protect something they only refer to as it and keep Young Jahad's location a secret. Back at Bomb's location, Coon and Data Yu brainstorm about what they should do next. Data Yu thinks that there's a good chance that the big breeder would appear if they continue moving through the stages. But since they have no other choice if they want to search for their other allies, they'll have to go through them regardless. So they enter another stage called the Rough Land. Before doing so, Coon notes how he felt a weird chill back in the cold land. However, he just chalks it up to the stage's climate. A couple of days pass and we find out that Boro and his crew have been taken to the hidden stage where they could finally meet Data Edahn. Marco points toward a tower far off in the distance with a blue beacon on it. He tells Boro and the others that that's where they'll find his dad, a place called the Palace of Spears. All of a sudden, another Data version of a Coon family member appears before the group and chastises Marco for being late. We find out that this is none other than the Data version of Coon Masheni Jahad, who happens to be a young girl at this point, since she cleared the hidden floor at an early age. Masheni informs her brother and Boro's group that Data Edahn went off somewhere on his own after getting impatient waiting for his guests. They don't have to look far and wide for the man, however, as Data Edahn emerges from the distance after fending off a number of monsters. He can't cool off from excitement on meeting Bomb, the son of V. Meanwhile, we see that Bomb, Coon, Rak, and Data Yu have just cleared the 7th stage of the hidden floor called the Labyrinth of the Minotaur after defeating its boss. On the other hand, we see that Endorsi, Barrel, and Icarus are in another part of the hidden floor after just having beaten their own assigned opponent. Coon and Endorsi report their status to each other using their measuring devices when Coon suddenly feels another chill in the air. An observer then approaches and greets him. Coon instantly recognizes who's on the other end of the line, as they inform him that they're his sworn enemy. We find out soon enough that this voice belongs to the same Coon girl we saw earlier. What's more is that she just threatened Coon that she'll take out her hostage, Misang, if he doesn't show up to duel her. Bomb, of course, hears all of this and instantly springs into action. However, Coon manages to stop his best friend, telling Bomb that he should handle his sworn enemy by himself. This way, Bomb and the others could continue on with their mission. So Coon leaves one of his lighthouses with Bomb, telling him to call once they find the exit. He then goes to his sworn enemy's location. Not long after that, Coon arrives at their designated meeting spot and we learn that his sworn enemy is a Data version of one of his sisters, Kisea. As you'd expect, Kisea starts talking some trash to Coon, blaming him for the death of their other sister. She then challenges Coon to a duel and the two get down to business. Kisea lunges at him with her knife, while Coon attempts to block her attacks with his lighthouse. The problem is that Kisea knows a technique called Baby Growler, an ability she learned from her mom that has the ability to disable Coon's lighthouse. Without it serving as a barrier between them, Coon is forced to go on a straight-up knife fight with a sworn enemy as the two try to shiv each other. Coon is forced to continuously block Kisea's lightning-quick strikes but is eventually slashed across his chest when Kisea finds an opening. All the while, Kisea calls her brother a murderer. But instead of finishing the job right away, Kisea commits a critical fight error and chooses to have a monologue where she pretty much expresses to Coon how much she wants to take his life. On the other hand, Kisea has no idea that this version of Coon is actually the real one, as she mistakes him for his Data version. Thankfully, Kisea doesn't chew up too much of the scenery and decides to end her speech after a short while. She then gets ready to take out Coon with a powerful double-handed overhead stab to the chest. Somewhere else on this stage, Bomb and the other members of their group continue to look for the exit. However, they only keep on hitting dead ends. On the other hand, Rak spots a curious portrait of himself above one of the many doors on this stage. Their search stops when Rachel's avatar finally decides to do something useful and channel Chung's powers to look for the way to the exit. At the same time, Kisea almost ends Coon's life, but the boy goes for a Hail Mary and tackles his sworn enemy before her blade could touch him. Kisea is startled when she discovers that her hostage, Misang, has disappeared. In true Tower of God fashion, Coon lays out everything he did up until this point to his sworn enemy. As it turns out, he used his lighthouse to teleport Misang somewhere far away while Kisea was too busy beating his butt earlier. Still, Kisea doesn't really mind that Misang is gone, since her primary directive is to take out Coon. So it's back to business, as she gets ready to stab her brother again. However, Coon's lighthouse suddenly appears and teleports him. Coon then reveals that he had just gone and done double bluff when he told Kisea that he used his lighthouse to take Misang far away. In truth, he just hid both Misang and his lighthouse behind one of the pillars inside the room so that he could easily call for it to take him to safety. Kisea is not even mad. She's actually impressed with this maneuver, although she does express her concern about how Coon's attitude has changed. In response, Coon simply tells Kisea that there's no way he's going to die before he becomes the head of the Coon family. And with that, he tells Kisea that it's time for him to go when he receives a message from Bomb and the others letting him know that they found the exit. Coon and Misang teleport to his friend's location. Bomb and the others come to his aid after seeing his wound, but Coon insists they move to the next stage now before Kisea catches up to him. They then access the door to the exit and are transported to the stage selection area. Surprisingly enough, Rachel's avatar does another useful thing by volunteering to heal Coon and Misang. So Icarus channels Chung's abilities again and uses it to help Coon and Misang. In the middle of this, Dadayu becomes all the more suspicious of Icarus when he spots her wearing a marble bracelet that he knows belongs to Chung. On the other hand, Bomb, Coon, and the others are just thankful for Icarus's assistance. All in all, it seems that only Dadayu and Coon himself are the only members of their group who haven't fallen for Rachel's deception up to this point. Back inside Kisea's room, all she can do is rant about how she let her target get away. All of a sudden, Juk emerges from the shadows, and this time he's accompanied by their target's respective sworn enemies. Juk then tells Kisea that he's going to help her get revenge on Coon. Back inside the Palace of Spears, Dada Edahn receives his guests inside his throne room with a banquet of grapes and wine. We then get a lowdown on who Coon Edahn is, and it's pretty much the same story we've gotten about all the other lords of the 10 great families. Namely that Edahn was one of the irregulars who entered the tower with Jahad and later became one of the 10 great leaders. A new piece of information that we discover, on the other hand, is the fact that Edahn is widely known as the greatest spear bearer inside the tower. On top of that, he has extremely powerful melee skills, and all this led to Edahn becoming one of the strongest among the 10 great lords alongside the heads of the Ari and Ha families. Sachi then asks Hackney to use his eyes to scan Dada Edahn when he finds out that the man possesses a faint holiness about him. Sachi then addresses Dada Edahn and expresses that even he does not understand why Edahn would help them fight Young Jahad. Dada Edahn then tells the same story about how Young Jahad got himself a couple of magical mirrors in the past. Specifically, it turns out that the real Jahad presented his Dada version with a second magical mirror. He then used the second mirror to transport the Dada versions of his companions to a different world separate from the hidden floor, namely the hidden floor. Long story short is that all the other Dada companions that Young Jahad had chose to go there, while Dada Edahn opted to stay on the hidden floor after noticing that Young Jahad's personality changed after he met the real one. As Dada Edahn puts it, it felt like something entirely different returned to their world after that meeting. Somewhere else, we discovered that Young Jahad is now keeping an eye on Bomb and his friends. He asked one of his big breeders if Bomb is the same guy who used the Black Hole Shinsu Sphere technique earlier before deciding to check the boy out for himself. Back in Dada Edahn's throne room, he continues his revelations by telling Boro and his group that he tried crossing over to the hidden floor after Young Jahad took their companions there. But here's the big shocker. Dada Edahn learned that there was no one there other than the big breeders. That's because the truth is that all of the Dada humans who moved to the hidden floor were actually deleted. While this is happening, we see that Bomb and team are being ferried on a couple of skyboats on the way to the next stage's town. Dadayu continues to stew over who Icarus truly is, especially when he thinks about how she claims she could heal everybody but cannot bring Misang back to consciousness. Then, of course, there's the bracelet she's wearing. Dadayu theorizes that it's possible Icarus possesses it because, as she told them, she's one of the big breeder's sworn enemies. All the while, Bomb, Rack, and Dorsey have their eyes fixed on Coon, who's currently just minding his own business sitting by the bow of the ship. Coon gets weirded out and tells his friends to just ask if they have a question for him. In turn, Dorsey tries her best, and fails, to hide being a busybody when she asks about Coon's sworn enemy after she learned that it was a woman. Coon ultimately agrees and gives the full lowdown on his relationship with Kisea. In truth, Kisea isn't really his sister. She's a first cousin from his mom's side of the family. Coon's mother took her in after her sister, Kisea's mom, fell in battle. So they pretty much grew up as siblings. Now, Kisea looked up to Coon's older sister, the one who was supposed to be a princess of Jahad. As for Coon, he was raised to become a strategist who would help his older sister become a Jahad princess. In any case, Kisea actually got in on this action, as she volunteered to take out any rival that their older sister might have had. And with her skills in swordsmanship, Kisea actually became really good at this job. But as we all know by now, Coon didn't actually stick to his family's wishes and instead betrayed his older sister to another Jahad princess candidate, Maria. This whole saga ended with Maria becoming a princess, Coon's older sister taking her own life, and Coon himself becoming disowned by the rest of his family. After telling his story, Coon then asks about Dorsey's sworn enemy, the Snake Charmer. She tries to talk her way out of it at first, but is ultimately forced to spill the beans. It's here we find out that Dorsey was a bit of a drifter growing up. She eventually got taken in by a couple from the middle region, and for a time she felt like an ordinary girl. However, the same gem that houses the Snake Charmer appeared to her during this period and promised her that it would help Dorsey become a princess of Jahad. Tempted by the offer, Dorsey took the gem with her. The next day, however, she discovered that the Snake Charmer had taken out her foster parents, since they thought that they would get in her way to becoming a princess of Jahad. From then on, Dorsey followed everything it said, and the Snake Charmer was basically her groomer. Ultimately, the Snake Charmer groomed Dorsey so hard that she was able to ascend through the ranks and become what she is now. Coon hears this and basically expresses how he can't believe that Dorsey would allow to travel with the same monster who killed her parents. But Dorsey insists that she hasn't been groomed at all. telling him and Bomb that she's actually happy that she met the snake charmer because it led to her becoming Jahad princess. But even someone who's not as bright as Bomb can tell that Endorsi's lying. After all, if she really didn't hate the snake charmer, then he wouldn't have turned out to be her designated sworn enemy on the hidden floor. Their boats eventually reach the stage's town called the Golden Dome. Rachel senses that their teammates like Yura are probably at the Golden Dome as they get ready to anchor their boats. They then get off and are greeted by a robot guide. Daddy warns Bomb that they should be careful since they're now in Huang's territory, and he even goes so far as to say that Huang is basically the leader figure among the big breeders. In the end, Daddy advises them to split up their group to look for their other companions faster and just finish the stage's grand quest after that. On the other hand, Icarus excuses herself from the rest of the group, telling Bomb and the others that there's just something she wants to check in town. They let her go, and shortly after, Bomb and Coon notice that the Golden Dome is populated exclusively by robots instead of data people. To further speed up their search, Bomb and Coon also decide to separate, with Bomb checking the central dome while Coon surveys its exterior with his lighthouse. Shortly after, Bomb reaches the heart of the central dome and notices that no one is inside. However, he does spot an object that looks similar to the seed that he saw inside the quarantine area. All of a sudden, Bomb hears a voice telling him that he must be the kid who imitated the Shinsu black hole sphere technique. Bomb looks up and sees none other than Young Jahad in the distance. Young Jahad correctly assumes that Bomb learned the technique from the guardian of the Hell Train, but notes how sloppy his execution is. Bomb starts to become wary of the guy when he correctly identifies him as an irregular. On the other hand, Rax starts to get an unsettling feeling from far away while he's paired up with Endorsi. Back in the central dome, Bomb asks who the boy in front of him is, and Young Jahad answers us by telling him that he's the one who will become the king. Young Jahad then goes on a monologue that basically pitches himself before finally telling Bomb his name. Not too far away, Rax springs into action and rushes towards Bomb's location after sensing his old friend in danger. Endorsi is forced to follow him after learning about this too. Inside the central dome, Bomb's brain finishes buffering and finally recognizes that he's come face to face with Jahad's data version, aka Young Jahad. Young Jahad asks him where he came from, and Bomb admits that he has no idea about his origins, only that he was strapped somewhere outside of the tower the moment he was born. This piques Young Jahad's curiosity, as he tells Bomb that he too came from outside the tower. The difference is that he knows exactly where he came from, and according to Young Jahad, it's a vast and spacious place. To Bomb's credit, he remains civil with Young Jahad, but not for long. It all starts when he asks Young Jahad if he knows Arlene Grace. Young Jahad fibs and tells him he has no idea who that woman is. While this is happening, Icarus makes her way toward the location where she has sensed her teammates. Eventually, she spots the Traveler and Joaquin near a cave. Rachel's avatar approaches them, who are then startled when they see this attractive elf-like woman with dirty blonde hair. Still, they get wary and ask Icarus who she is, and since Rachel's not the brightest bulb in the box, she fumbles instead of just telling her teammates about what has happened to her up until now. Regardless, Joaquin treats Rachel's avatar deservedly so, as he dismisses her avatar and turns toward the cave's opening again, telling her to shut her mouth because they're about to see something important. Icarus snoops in with the two and witnesses Yura face-to-face with a guy who eerily looks similar to her. Back in the central dome, Bomb immediately calls out Young Jahad for lying about Arlene Grace. Still, Young Jahad stands by his original statement. But whether it's out of arrogance or classic villain grandstanding, Young Jahad pretty much hints at the fact that he actually knows Arlene when he starts blabbering about how becoming a king means erasing the people around you. And after a long-winded speech about that, he tells Bomb that it's pretty much what's required to become a king. Young Jahad then asks Bomb to look at him and tell him what the boy sees. Curiously, Bomb sees Young Jahad as an actual monster, and weirdly enough, Bomb seemingly loses his mind and lets out an ear-splitting scream before lunging at Young Jahad. Just outside, Rack and Endorsi witness a hole being blown through the side of the central dome. In fact, everyone from Coon to Data U hears the explosion from Bomb and Young Jahad's initial clash. Inside the central dome, we see that Bomb's open palm strike has been completely nullified by Young Jahad by blocking it with his fingers. He commends Bomb for his skills, but criticizes him for making his wave explosion too light. And at this point, even Bomb has no idea why he just attacked Young Jahad. Too late though, because the Dana version of the King of the Tower is about to school Bomb on how to use Shinsu techniques properly. Young Jahad charges up a technique called Jahad-style air explosion, Iron Fist, and blasts Bomb with it. The ensuing explosion causes all the windows in the central dome to shatter, while Bomb is wounded by the technique. Young Jahad, to his credit, continues coaching Bomb about how you could control the Shinsu flowing through everything in this world, which would allow anyone who masters it to control the Shinsu in another person's body. Long story short, Young Jahad knows how to crush your butt without even touching you. He then asks Bomb again about his true identity and how he knows the name Arlene Grace. At this moment, Rack and Endorsi arrive inside the central dome to see an absolutely battered Bomb lying on the floor. Endorsi recognizes Young Jahad, who has lost all his patience for these intruders. As a result, Young Jahad orders Bomb to tell him who he really is or he'll take him out right then and there. And just to make sure he means business, he charges up his own Shinsu black hole sphere and threatens Bomb that he'll make his friends disappear forever if he doesn't answer his questions. Back inside Data Edahn's throne room, he orders Marco to bring him the mirror that leads to the other side after sensing that Young Jahad has started to make a move. Meanwhile, Bomb notices light exploding within Young Jahad's body. He registers it as a threat and orders Endorsi and Rack to get out of the central dome this instant. But the situation just gets worse and all his other friends, like Coon and Barrel, also arrive inside the dome. This all just makes Young Jahad lose patience. So he tells Bomb that time's up and unleashes the Shinsu black hole sphere, engulfing the entire central dome in a bright explosion. Data witnesses this by the dome's entrance and sees that Data Edahn has arrived just in time to shield Bomb and the others from Young Jahad's attack. Now Data Edahn faces off with him. Coon can easily tell that the data human right in front of them is none other than his dad, while he trash talks Young Jahad about being fake. In response, Young Jahad continues to insist that he's born with the seeds of the king, which just opens him up for Data Edahn to throw more shade at him. Then Data approaches and profusely thanks Data Edahn for coming to their aid. Data Edahn then asks Data which of the kids is the one who was promised to him. Young Jahad butts in their conversation, and the two powerful data humans surmise that it's Bomb. Data Edahn then contacts Marco to take Bomb and all of his friends through their magical mirror. Marco obeys his father and orders everyone from Bomb's group to come to the other side. However, Young Jahad rushes in to try and stop this from happening, prompting Data Edahn to clash with him again. Rack and the others make a beeline for the mirror, but notice Bomb and Coon staring slack-jawed at Data Edahn and Young Jahad's epic clash. The two go at it at close range for a bit before Data Edahn summons a giant energy ball and threatens Young Jahad with it. In response, Young Jahad summons a few bangs and they shoot each other with their respective techniques. Data Edahn immediately follows up his technique by summoning his Giant's Lightning Spear, while Young Jahad uses his Golden Needle from Mystery Island. The two clash again, while those on the ground scamper towards the mirror. The devastation from the two data humans fight is so large that Coon wonders how much stronger their original counterparts are in the outside world. After their clash, Data Edahn figures out that he and Young Jahad aren't going anywhere with their fight, since Young Jahad has gotten one of their companions as a hostage. So he instead proposes a bet, and it's an offer Young Jahad couldn't refuse. As Data Edahn puts it, he'll train Bomb for a month and have him fight Young Jahad. If the boy loses, Data Edahn will submit himself to Young Jahad and willingly have his data deleted. To further sweeten the deal, Data Edahn will even accept that Young Jahad is the real one. On the other hand, Bomb has no other choice but to tell Young Jahad his origin story if he wins in their duel. Young Jahad thinks this is going to be an easy win, so he takes his rival up on the deal. They agree that they'll meet at this exact place a month from now. And if Data Edahn screws him over by taking their bet to the other side, Young Jahad will take out the boy and all his companions. In the end, the terms are settled and Young Jahad lets go of Bomb and the others before buzzing off to meet the boy after a month's worth of training. Young Jahad makes sure he gets the last word in before leaving, as he threatens Bomb and his friends. Meanwhile, Icarus, Joaquin, and the Traveler continue to be a trio of busybodies, as they snoop in on Yura and the boy who looks like her. Curiously, there's an unconscious woman beside the boy in front of Yura. More importantly, he asks Yura if she knows him, to which she says yes. Yura then produces a mere fragment from her pocket and tells the boy that she saw him with it. While this is happening, we get caught up with Yiwa and Hong as they travel through the inner tower of the 41st floor. To pass the time, Yiwa asks Hong why he's been hounding Yura ever since the beginning of their journey. Yiwa assumes that he is just pig-whipped, but we hope you guys are ready for this, because Hong is about to give us a big reveal. As he puts it, he first met Yura in Train City where she told him that she had already been to the hidden floor. Yura also told him that the past version of her mom could be found there. To prove she was telling the truth, Yura even showed Hong her mirror fragment and gave him a piece of it. However, Hong notices that he has lost the mirror fragment when he tries to present it to Yiwa. We then find out that he lost it during the attack at the Name Hunt station, as the fragment popped out of his pocket and accidentally transported Rack to the hidden floor, which explains how the crocodilian warrior got there in the first place. Curiously, both Hong and Yiwa forget everything they were just talking about the moment he realizes that he lost his mirror fragment. Back on the hidden floor, Yura tells the boy that she always has a hard time remembering the hidden floor because of the rule that states you forget about it anytime you try sharing it with the outside world. The only way Yura catches glimpses of her memories of this place is all thanks to the mirror fragment she has. The boy tells him it's cool, because what matters is she's here right now. He then introduces himself as Yura's twin brother, or to be more precise, he's a big breeder who has borrowed her twin brother's body. Yura has no idea what he's talking about, but Rachel's avatar recognizes the words big breeder. Now we hope you're ready for another big revelation, guys, because what you're about to find out is mind-blowing. As Yura's twin tells it, their mother cleared the train and entered the hidden floor a long time ago. Unlike other adventurers, though, she was pregnant with twins when she entered this place after getting pregnant by their father while riding the Hell Train. It's a pretty straightforward love story until you find out that Yura and her twins Dan was a descendant of a family who had betrayed the 10 great families on Jahad. As a result of that, his bloodline was cursed with a few pesky conditions that come at random. This cursed family were either born with a male and female side in one body, which also made them lose their reproductive ability, had their original power sealed off, or the chances of having a stillbirth whenever they made babies increased to the extreme. Yura and her twins' dad was specifically cursed with the third condition. As such, there was little to no chance that they were both going to survive it when the time came for their mom to deliver the twins. Specifically, the female twin, Yura, was able to luck out and skip the curse because of the blessing of the Ha family. However, her twin brother was saddled with it, which meant that there was a high chance he was going to be stillborn. To make matters worse, their dad lost his life after fighting a guardian on the Hell Train before he could enter the hidden floor. On the bright side, their mom was able to delay giving birth while she was on the hidden floor. Eventually, she met one of the big breeders, Huang, who also happens to be the same unconscious woman beside Yura's twin in the present. Huang then took pity on their mom and offered to help her by altering the fate of her unborn twins so that they both survive. To do that, Huang made arrangements so that their mom would give birth to Yura on the outside world, while she delivers the male twin inside the hidden floor. That way they would both survive. On top of that, Huang gave her the mirror fragment so that their mom could check in on their son any time. In the end, their mom took the deal. She eventually gave birth to Yura outside, while her data version gave birth to the male twin here. To simplify things, just put it this way. The original mom gave birth to a stillborn boy and Yura outside the hidden floor. On the other hand, Data mom gave birth to a Data baby boy and a stillborn Data Yura. After that whole sob story, the boy asks Yura how their mother's doing in the outside world. This opens up another exposition dump, this time with Yura being the narrator as she tells her side of the story. According to her, their mom gave up on climbing the tower after giving birth to them. She and Yura then settled someplace in the middle area. It wasn't all peaceful though, as rumors eventually spread that a woman from the Ha family gave birth to a strange child. Yura doesn't exactly know the details, but she does remember thinking that there might be something wrong with her growing up, since she and her mom ended up being chased away by the Ha family. As she puts it, the last they saw each other was when Yura was just about to enter the tower. That was also when her mom gifted her with the mirror fragment, telling her to go to the hidden floor to meet her past self. Yura never saw her mom after that, since the lady went back to the Ha family and eventually passed away. As for Yura, she decided to become a pop star to make sure that no one from the Ha family tried to assassinate her. It would be a bit of a scandal after all. Yura then reveals her true intentions in climbing the tower, and it's pretty much the same old story we've heard from other characters as well. She wants revenge against the 10 great families, even if it means teaming up with Fug. She also reveals that she only came here this time to at least tell their mom about her goal. But then, this otherwise heartfelt conversation takes a dark turn when Yura's twin brother reveals that their Data mom has already passed on. Now, remember when he told Yura earlier that he was just a big breeder borrowing his body? We get the huge reveal that Huang was actually the first ever big breeder that Jahad created to control the hidden floor. On top of that, Huang pretty much specializes in using dolls that imitate people from the outside as clones. As it turns out, Huang's original form is that of a yellow floating orb, and the unconscious woman is just another one of the bodies he created to use as dolls. Eventually, Huang got curious about what it would be like to be born as a normal human being, so Huang didn't really lift the curse on Yura and her twin brother's mom. In truth, she actually took over the then unborn baby boy growing inside their Data mom, and to make sure her tracks are covered, Huang relegated her duties as a big breeder to her colleagues after that. From there, Huang found out what it was like to become a real person. But his machinations eventually unraveled when their Data mom started to notice there was something strange about her son. In the end, their Data mom brought her suspicions to her son, and Huang revealed everything she did. From there, Data mom's mind broke and she begged Huang to delete her, which Huang did. Hearing all of this unsurprisingly makes Yura livid. She tries to attack Huang and a clash almost erupts between the two when Young Jahad calls the big breeder living inside the body of Yura's twin. Young Jahad orders Huang to generate a battle arena for his upcoming bout with Bomb next month, and he obeys, forcing her to cancel her duel with Yura. On top of that, Young Jahad wants one of the intruders as a hostage, so Huang chooses Yura, noting that he needs her and the mirror fragment. Huang also reveals that he knows Joaquin, the Traveler, and Icarus have been eavesdropping on them this whole time and threatens the three before leaving with Yura. All of a sudden, the three are sucked into a magic mirror. The same thing happens to Bomb's group and they find themselves in an unfamiliar place with Data Edahn. Data Edahn refers to him as the son of V and tells Bomb that he knew his father back when they first climbed the tower. Then, we also find out that Young Jahad is making power moves behind the scenes. Sure, he plans to honor his deal with Data Edahn, but their agreement doesn't state that he's forbidden from getting to his kids, such as Marco and Macheni. So after making sure that Huang has finished making preparations, Young Jahad invites his big breeder to the Palace of the Spears to take out Data Edahn's kids. Soon after, Young Jahad and Huang arrive at the Palace of Spears only to find out that it's been deserted. He wonders if Data Edahn has been planning this all along and knows that he's taken Bomb and the others to the so-called mirror at the end. Huang then asks Young Jahad why he even took the bet with Data Edahn in the first place when he could have just flatlined everyone then and there. We find out that it's because he heard a name that he wasn't supposed to hear, that of Arlene Grace. Young Jahad then instructs Huang to keep an eye on Data Edahn and report back to him while he goes after their targets. Somewhere else, we discover that Edahn has taken Bomb and his friends to a place called the Extra Stage, Training Stage. Bomb continues to prod Edahn about V, but they're interrupted when Hwang's pocket appears to check if this place is up to his usual standards. Edahn doesn't entertain Hwang and instead expresses that he knows they're trying to trap him here. Hwang denies this and instead changes the subject, giving us an exposition dump about the training stage. As Hwang puts it, there's a champion villain at the very end of this island that Bomb and the others have to beat before moving on to the battleground where he and Young Jahad could duel. Hwang tells them that they can also use the scroll to beat the grand quest of this stage and return to the Palace of Spears, but that would break the terms of Edahn's agreement with Young Jahad. And with that, Edahn tells Hwang to buzz off. Before leaving though, Bomb asks the Big Breeder about Icarus and Wanyan, to which Hwang says that they only kept a couple of his companions as hostages and sent the others to this same place, and if Bomb wins his duel with Young Jahad, the hostages would be freed. Hwang finally teleports away from the stage as Edahn tells his guests to settle in. Later, Edahn gives Marco a call and informs him that he wouldn't be able to join them for now. As such, Marco takes it upon himself and his Data siblings to get the mirror at the end. Edahn tells his kid to be careful and not to forget to call one of their other siblings, Icardi. All the while, Coon listens in on their conversation and is absolutely starstruck when he notices Marco, since the original version of the guy is known as the legendary Spearmaster within the tower. Edahn and Marco's chat ends. He then tells everyone except Bomb to go and get some rest. As for Bomb, Edahn tells him to get dressed and meet him to start his training. Before he lets them go, however, Edahn instructs Dadayu to debrief them about the mirror at the end when they get to their lodging. Bomb even tries to coax Coon into having some father-son time with Edahn, but Coon ultimately refuses, telling his best friend that this guy is basically a stranger to him. Somewhere else, we find that Boro and his crew have accompanied Marco on his mission. Boro asks if the mirror at the end could delete Young Jahad's data, and Marco explains the artifact specifications to his companions. As it turns out, the mirror at the end is the same thing that Bomb and the others have encountered whenever they finish a stage. This same mirror serves to send heroes back to the Hell Train. But if a data human tries to escape the hidden floor using the mirror, a failsafe within it kicks in and it deletes the perpetrator. So they can pretty much use it on Young Jahad, since he's a data human after all. The only problem is how they're going to steal the mirror at the end and bring it here. All of a sudden, Juk emerges with his gang of freshly summoned sworn enemies. He wastes no time to use the Stone General to rain boulders on our heroes. But Masheni appears out of nowhere and effortlessly turns the rain of boulders into rubble before issuing Juk a challenge. Meanwhile, at the training stage's lodging, Barrel and the others have just been caught up to speed about Coon's relationship with Edahn. But when Barrel asks how they would even defeat someone like Young Jahad, Coon finds himself in a pickle and tells her that he's not so sure about that. At the same time, we see that Edahn has begun Bomb's first training session. Before proceeding, Bomb asks him what else he knows about V, and Edahn humors the boy. For one, he tells Bomb that V traveled the tower with him, but he didn't leave a data version of himself on the hidden floor. When Bomb asks what kind of person his father was, Edahn tells him that although V was hard to describe, he's pretty sure that he would have picked the guy to be the king of the tower if the choice was between V and himself. Edahn goes on to tell Bomb about how V and Jahad's personalities were the exact opposite of each other. On one hand, V was this man of the people who was genuinely interested in the residents of the hidden floor and tried to get closer to ordinary people. On the other hand, Jahad became something completely different the more they traveled with him. That is to say, he turned out to be a classist jerk. As Edahn puts it was only Arlene who kept the peace whenever V and Young Jahad got on each other's nerves. However, Edahn also tells Bomb that he only knows these guys' eventual fates, such as V's death and Jahad's ascension to become the king of the tower, based on what Dadayu told him. In fact, all the data humans who came through the hidden floor prior to Dadayu's arrival didn't even know who V was. In addition to that, Edahn told him about the exact circumstances that led to him making a promise to Dadayu. As it turns out, Dadayu asked him in the past to help defeat Young Jahad because V's son, Bomb, would one day come to this place. Edahn initially didn't think it was true, but he made the promise with Dadayu to hedge his bets just in case. And here they are now. Edahn tells Bomb that he'll tell him more about V bit by bit. At present, he has to focus on training for his bout with Young Jahad. Bomb's first lesson is to finish an assignment. Edahn charges up electricity in his fingers and explains it as Shinsu quality. It's basically the ability to infuse your own Shinsu with special qualities. And according to Edahn, he and his companions spent a lot of time mastering Shinsu quality. Edahn tells Bomb that he currently knows how to infuse Shinsu with 3 qualities, and electricity is the first one of them. The lesson continues with him explaining that externally manifesting your Shinsu quality is called Quality Manifested Shinsu Control. On the other hand, there's also a technique called Internal Quality Shinsu Control, which is what you call when you make your Quality Manifested Shinsu explode from within your body to obtain power. Bomb gets the basic gist of internal quality Shinsu control and compares it to the lightning pill that Run uses. Edahn is amused that he knows about this technique but warns him that although they're similar, the lightning pill is a far less reliable and more dangerous skill to use. Hearing all this makes Bomb wonder if Young Jahad uses an internal quality Shinsu black hole sphere. But the lesson isn't over yet, as Data Edahn tells him that finding the right quality to infuse your Shinsu would make it easier for you to concentrate power into your bang. Data Edahn then does a demonstration for Bomb, showing him a single bang charged with electrified Shinsu. As he puts it, this makes your Shinsu denser and increases your destructive power without the need to summon additional bangs. This is called tension. Data Edahn then releases his bang and Bomb is absolutely amazed at how powerful it is when it hits the ground below them. Data Edahn tells him that V was the most outstanding tension user he knows, and even though their other companion, Eurasia, was the top wave controller in their team, V was unbeatable when it came to this technique. He then instructs Bomb to forget about using Shinsu Black Hole Sphere for now and focus on mastering tension. Data Edahn then shows Bomb another demonstration by summoning his electrical spear. According to him, this is what you could create once you master tension and Shinsu quality. So Bomb's homework is to create something with the same shape as the electrical spear using his own Shinsu quality and tension. While this is happening, Juck orders Bomb's sworn enemy to attack Macheni, but he refuses after telling the Big Breeder that he's only here to fight Bomb. So Juck decides to face off against Macheni himself. Marco steps in and tells his sister that he'll handle Juck instead, while she and their visitors beat the quest. Macheni agrees, and an annoyed Juck tries to talk smack to Marco. In reply, Marco simply tells the Big Breeder that he's going to die here today. Before clashing, Juck first orders his henchmen to go after Macheni and the others. Still, Bomb's sworn enemy wouldn't budge. Marco didn't come here to play around though. He takes this opportunity to backstab Juck, forcing him to go on the defensive. Marco then taunts his opponent, telling him he has no hope of winning against him in this place, since Juck couldn't access Young Jahad's power. But Juck replies by telling him he doesn't need Young Jahad's help to beat him, as his clone transforms into a larger, more feral version of himself. The two combatants then lunge at each other, as Juck blasts Marco with energy from his spear. Marco dodges it, but notices that Juck isn't a pushover. They even get at it at close range, and Juck reveals that he's had Marco on his hit list ever since he found out about the guy. In fact, it's the same reason he became a Big Breeder. They continue to tussle, and Marco eventually notices that Juck's skill with a spear resembles the Coon family's trademark martial arts style. At the same time, Macheni and Boral's group face off against the villain of the Grand Quest called the Flying Monster Needles. And for the first time since he got here, Boral finally stops being such a scaredy cat and actually enjoys the battle when he realizes that this villain uses weapons. Because, if you guys remember, Boral is pretty much invulnerable to this kind of fighting style. The main body of the champion villain then appears, and it's called the Monster Lord Needles. Macheni sees this and tells the group to just hold the line while she takes out all of their opponents. That's because at the same time, Juck's Stone Giant is also barraging Boral, Sachi, and Hakti with its Stone Storm. Shortly after, we get back to Marco and Juck, and he asks the Big Breeder if he has anything to do with the Coon family after noticing his fighting style. Then Marco breaks the seal on the spear after telling Juck that he's going to show him something of his own. Nearby, Kaseya recognizes Marco and proceeds with an exposition dump about how the original Marco Ascenio Coon easily became a high ranker in the outside world and formed his own faction within the Coon family. We then find out from Kaseya that Marco is planning to use his signature technique, the Flying Fish Spear skill. Below them, Juck gets all hyped up and lunges at Marco with the intention of stabbing him to death. Marco, on the other hand, unleashes the Flying Fish Spear skill, which works by having the tip of his weapon detach from the rod and work like a remote projectile. But this is no ordinary spear tip. For one, it flies at supersonic speeds that Juck is too slow to block. In fact, this spear tip is so fast that Juck starts to believe that it has multiplied 100-fold in the middle of its barrage. Marco's salvos culminates with another technique called Asensio's Flying Fish Spear skill, Aqua Slash, to knock back Juck. He then asks the Big Breeder if he learned spearmanship from the Coon family. Juck says yes, but he doesn't get into much detail about it. All he tells Marco is how much he hates the people from the 10 families because they're a bunch of classist jerks. But Juck ultimately decides to stay on the task at hand, and that is to throw down with Marco. He lunges at the guy again, but Juck's wish wouldn't be fulfilled, because Macheni has just arrived on the scene. In fact, even Marco is surprised that she's here right now. However, Macheni tells her little brother that she already crushed all of their opponents, which makes Marco literally kneel and bow before the greatness of his Nuna. Macheni then turns around and notices that Marco still hasn't beaten Juck. So, like the responsible big sister that she is, Macheni decides to help her brother do his job and absolutely flatline Juck's clone with a single thrust of her blade. Macheni then scolds Marco for wasting their time and tells him to hurry up, since their other sibling, Icardi, will meet with them on the next stage. Somewhere else, Huang reports to Young Jahad that Juck's clone body has been destroyed. We find out that Juck actually went to Marco and the others' location without Young Jahad's explicit orders. Simply put, he committed insubordination. Huang asks Young Jahad if they should pursue Marco and the others, but he tells the Big Breeder to just stay put because they'll come through their location anyway. While this is happening, the sworn enemies that Juck had summoned realize that the Big Breeder was just using them to get his own revenge. One of them then gets the bright idea that since their handler is gone, they each and every one of them could proceed with their original directive, and that's to face off with their respective assignments. Back on the training stage, Data Edahn instructs Bomb to think of the qualities and shape of Shinsu he thinks suit him the most. Bomb has a hard time trying to figure out what he wants, so Data Edahn helps by handing him a small device called a Shinsu reactant, aka a clicker. According to Data Edahn, Po Badang Gustang invented this device to help them come up with a shape and quality for their Shinsu. You do this by pressing a button on the clicker and the liquid inside it reacts to your qualities and attributes and shows you the shape of Shinsu that suits you. But Data Edahn reminds Bomb that the clicker only shows you your suitable Shinsu quality and form. It doesn't spoon feed you any further than that, so it's up to Bomb to actually craft what he sees with the clicker. Data Edahn tells him to give the clicker a try, but instead of doing that, Bomb asks his new mentor if his friends could join their training in order to maximize this learning opportunity. In reply, Data Edahn pretty much tells the boy to go ahead. He really doesn't care. Back at the lodging area, Data Yu debriefs Coon and Rack about the mirror at the end, and it's basically everything we already heard earlier, namely that they could use it to delete Young Jahad's data. As Data Yu puts it, Data Edahn intends to find the mirror and use it against Young Jahad during Bomb's battle with him. As for the bet he made with Young Jahad, it's all part of Data Edahn's plan to buy some time to locate the mirror at the end first. Coon expresses his concerns about failing to locate the artifact, since it would mean Bomb would end up in a battle with Young Jahad without a chance of winning. So they agree to keep this information from Bomb for now. Unknown to the three, Rachel is snooping in on them using her avatar Icarus. She then gets the idea that she could face Young Jahad if she and her team manage to steal it before Data Edahn's kids do. Meanwhile, Coon and Rack wonder where Icarus is, but their discussion is interrupted when Bomb gives them a call telling the two to head over to his location. Soon after that, Coon and Rack arrive at the training grounds where Bomb shows them the clicker. He urges his two closest friends to try using it, but Coon has his reservations about it. In any case, Bomb presses the button on the clicker and it reveals an orb. Rack then goes next and a stone shield forms in front of them after activating the device, which makes Bomb think that Rack's Shinsu would be best utilized for defense. Finally, Coon gives in after a bit of persistence from his best friend. He presses the button and an ice spear appears in front of them. Data Edahn instantly recognizes Coon as one of his sons on the outside after seeing the ice spear. He asks the boy why he isn't a spear bearer, especially considering that the ice spear is an extremely rare ability. In reply, Coon tells Data Edahn that he didn't bother to learn how to use a spear, since he couldn't beat him with it outside. On top of that, their team already has a spear bearer in Rack, so that role has already been covered. Coon tries to leave in spite of Bomb's pleas not to, but Data Edahn makes him realize that training with his data version would help Coon become stronger. Still, it isn't enough to convince Coon to stay, telling Data Edahn that his original self is much different from him. Bomb, on the other hand, manages to change Coon's mind when he tells him that they should basically take any help they can get in order to become stronger. That way, they could defeat any threat that they face as they continue climbing the tower. In the end, Coon realizes that his best friend is right, so he stays. 2 days pass and we find out that Bomb has already mastered how to create the Shinsu quality manifested orb he saw from the clicker. On the other hand, both Rack and Coon are still struggling to create theirs. Another 4 days pass, we see that Marco, Macheni, and Boral's group have arrived on the 21st stage, also known as the seed at the center of the mirror. And as we heard earlier, one of Data Edahn's other kids, Icardi, has finally linked up with the team. All of a sudden, Macheni and her group were blocked by none other than Young Jahad. He tells them that he knows they're looking for the mirror at the end, but they're not going to get it, because it's in a restricted area. Young Jahad then orders them to turn back, and we see that Macheni is suddenly frozen in place. Marco thinks it has something to do with Young Jahad's presence. Young Jahad then uses his powers to create a chasm between himself and Macheni's group, telling them that going across would be a breach of his agreement with Data Edahn, which means he could have his way with Macheni and her companions. Simply put, he's going to take them out if they go any further. Thankfully, Macheni gets her act together just in time. In fact, she even acknowledges that Young Jahad must have affected her mind in some way. But like the responsible princess that she is, Macheni gets right down to business as she takes point and tells her group what to do. First, she tells Marco to provide her with support while she acts as their fisherman. She instructs her little brother to keep his distance from Young Jahad as much as possible. As she says, they're not here for a straight-up tussle. Instead, she and Marco are going to distract Young Jahad long enough for Boral and the others to sneak past him and make their way into the seed somehow. 10 minutes pass, we see that Hockney has just gotten back to consciousness. We find out that he had just tried looking into the future with his eyes, but only saw darkness when he stared at Young Jahad. As he puts it, Young Jahad is like an impenetrable area chosen by the tower itself. Not too far away, Edahn's kids get ready to spring their plan. As Macheni tells Marco to get ready to lay his life on the line, Marco is more than ready to do this. On the other hand, Huang tells Young Jahad that it seems their enemies are planning on rushing him. The big breeder offers his assistance to Young Jahad, but he takes offense to this. As he puts it, he'd still beat their butts even if Huang sided with their enemies. A second later, Macheni comes face to face with Young Jahad. She introduces herself as one of the princesses of Jahad on the outside. Hearing this, Young Jahad thinks Data Macheni is either insane or underestimating him for trying to step up. With the introductory trash talk out of the way, Macheni and Young Jahad clash as Marco, Icardi, and the others get ready to ambush their enemy. They try to gang up on Young Jahad, but he instantly destroys all the techniques they send over his way. As a matter of fact, Young Jahad didn't even need to lift a finger to dispel them, which makes Sachi realize that they're in way over their heads. However, Machete shows how much of a great commander she is when she rouses the group and tells them not to lose heart. Again, she clashes with Young Jahad. Somewhere else, Bomb is about to move to the next lesson of his training. With the ability to form his orb now mastered, Edahn now instructs Bomb to use it to attack a nearby rock. Bomb flings away the orb and it blows a hole on the rock. But this isn't the result Edahn is looking for. He scolds the boy for just hurling the orb and instead advises him to maintain its form while releasing the Shinsu stored inside it. As Edahn puts it, it's not about throwing the orb, it's about using it. Meanwhile, Rak has his own struggles with trying to form a stone shield with his own Shinsu. Coon faces the same problem, which prompts Edahn to pay them a visit and pretty much give Coon advice about ignoring his pride and taking advantage of his natural gifts as a member of the Coon family. On the other hand, Rak gets desperate and literally starts eating rocks, thinking that it would help him create a stone shield with his Shinsu. We also find out that Endorsi has already learned how to master this technique. In fact, she did it in less than 2 days, and her quality manifested Shinsu comes in the form of a bright red dart. Back to Bomb, he focuses his energy on the orb until it becomes a whirling ball of Shinsu floating in the air. He then releases the stored Shinsu inside it, which makes the ball explode and cause a devastating rain of Shinsu that manages to obliterate Bomb's target, the rock. Everyone is impressed, and even Edahn starts to believe that Bomb is probably ready to move to the next stage of their training. But that will have to wait, as the sworn enemies make their way to the training stage in search of their respective matchups. On the other hand, Edahn senses these intruders and gets excited that a bunch of worthy opponents have arrived in his domain. Now, it's not like Edahn is a war freak. As a matter of fact, he's happy about the sworn enemy's arrival because it gives him a chance to give Bomb and his other new students an opportunity to test what they've learned on the job. So he tells Bomb to go over there and face their sworn enemies. But Bomb is forbidden from using any other technique than his newly learned quality manifested Shinsu orb. While this is happening, Machete and Jahad have an epic clash. Young Jahad blasts her with numerous bangs and is surprised to find out that Machete has suddenly summoned a shield to protect her from them. Young Jahad instantly figures out that Akardi was the one who provided this using a technique called Akardi's spell, the language storage. No biggie though, as Young Jahad smashes the shield to bits with one hit. Still, Machete doesn't back down, and instead uses the small opening to strike Young Jahad with Machete-style deadly spear technique, Lightning Spear. She drives the lightning spear straight at Young Jahad, but he easily catches it with his bare hand. But he immediately finds out that Machete has caught him in a trap when she leaps away and detonates the lightning spear he's holding. Still, Young Jahad just eats up the powerful attack without taking any damage. He then asks Machete why she's fighting him even though she knows she'd lose. In reply, Machete pretty much confesses that she has always wanted to test her skills against the king of the tower. The problem is that her original self couldn't do it, since she's a princess of Jahad and that would be a breach of contract. So Machete has settled to just tussle with Young Jahad. He then asks her how she feels and Machete admits that she's scared but also very pleased that she finally got what she wanted. Machete then shows how serious she is when she gobbles up a lightning pill and prepares for another clash with Young Jahad. Meanwhile, we see that Boro, Sachi, Hakni, Bodice, and Medley have snuck their way into the seed with the help of Sachi's vines. Back at the seed's entrance, Machete and Young Jahad get at it at close range, with the princess using a technique called Machete-style spear technique transcendental skill, Great Spear of Dawn, to try and end the duel. But as before, it doesn't even leave a scratch on Young Jahad. He even praises her for getting close to him. In turn, Young Jahad summons Jahad-style Needle, Lycolicus, and sends Machete flying. Young Jahad then turns around and prepares to attack the rest of the intruders. Back at the training stage, the sworn enemies are surprised to find out that their matchups have been mixed up, with Kisea having to face off against Bomb. On the other hand, Coon is paired up with Rak, as the two face Bomb's own sworn enemy, Viol. Kisea asks Bomb what's going on, and we find out that Edahn just teleported them there. A second later, everyone on the battlefield hears Edahn telling his students that he purposefully switched the matchup so that they could show off what they'd learned more easily. He also swears that he wouldn't get involved with their respective duels. With Bomb distracted for a moment, Kisea gets cheeky and tries to shiv him with her blade. Bomb dodges and summons his Shinsu quality manifested orb. On top of that, he also summons his thorn, as he tells Kisea that he'll basically beat her senseless if she keeps on trying to get to Coon. All of a sudden, everyone notices Bomb's orb changing color. It gets tinted red before Bomb unleashes an intimidating barrage of Shinsu toward Kisea as a warning shot. As for Kisea, well, she's frozen in place after experiencing Bomb's powerful technique firsthand. On the other hand, Bomb isn't too happy with his release and follow-through, thinking that he lost control of the orb just before he released it. Meanwhile, Kisea turns to see that her observer has just been wrecked after getting caught in Bomb's previous attack. So, before Bomb could charge up another orb, Kisea does the smart thing and surrenders. Not only that, but she makes it clear that she has no chance to win against someone of Bomb's skill level. She then asks who Bomb is, knowing that he's not from one of the 10 great families. But before she could get an answer, the divine sea fish that happens to be Rak's sworn enemy suddenly appears and causes a tremor that knocks away Kisea. While this is happening, we find out that Coon and Rack are struggling against Viol. The two end up making a run for it and, as you'd expect, Coon and Rack get into an argument about how they should take down their opponent. However, their conversation is cut short when Viol suddenly teleports behind Coon and blasts him with energy right through the gut. Coon is knocked down and, out of instinct, Rack is able to finally create a stone shield with his Shinsu to protect his old friend. Viol easily destroys the rock shield, but Rack couldn't be happier that he was finally able to learn the technique. On the other hand, this just makes Coon insecure. Rack tries to summon another stone shield, but Viol beats him to the punch and sends him flying. He then barrages Coon with more Shinsu, forcing him to use his lighthouse as a shield. All the while, Coon starts to lose morale and thinks that he's only slowing Bomb down. Coon then has a flashback from his youth. Here we see a young Coon Aguero Agnes skipping his lessons to go fishing. One of his older sisters, Maria, fetches him. In reply, Coon chides Maria and even tells her that they're not really siblings. Maria tells Coon that he'll fail his test if he doesn't come back to class, but Coon replies by saying he doesn't care about any of that. As he puts it, he only works hard at things he's certain of. To Coon, struggling to get stronger in order to survive is a really pathetic and bothersome chore. On the other hand, Maria thinks that struggling for survival is a beautiful thing because it allows people to become obsessed with life and ultimately make them find themselves. In the present, Coon remembers how Maria told him that he had to look for something worth struggling for, or maybe struggle in order to find that something. On top of that, Coon also recalls his earlier conversation with Daddy Yu telling him to embrace the power handed down to him by the Coon family. Something awakens inside Coon as he pulls a spear from his lighthouse. He knows he couldn't create an ice spear with his own Shinsu, so he improvises and infuses his simple spear with the ice Shinsu that Evan gave him. And just like that, Coon gains the power of conviction as he turns his weapon into his own version of an ice spear. Above them, Daddy Edahn comments on how the kid has finally awakened his abilities. Meanwhile, Coon steps up to Viol and tells him that it's about time they finish this bout. But before that, Coon first turns to Rack to talk some good old-fashioned smack to his old friend. Jealous that Coon has his ice spear now, Rack proceeds to gobble up more rocks in hopes that it would help him summon another stone shield. Meanwhile, Rack's sworn enemy, the divine sea fish, tries to lunge at Kisea. Bomb steps in and channels his orb to use a technique called rapid-fire Shinsu Cannon to protect Kisea. On the other hand, Bomb can feel the overwhelming power from his orb but is confident that he can control it. The divine sea fish now tries to attack Bomb, but he sends it away yet again with a technique called Orb Spatial Control. And as you'd expect, Bomb tries to act like a deterrent, as he tells the divine sea fish to just go away before he gives it a whooping. While all this is happening, we see that Barrel is currently running away from her sworn enemy, which happens to be a manifestation of her childhood trauma. A toy that looked like a piece of chocolate, which nearly broke all of Barrel's teeth when she was just a kid hankering for some sweets. On the other hand, a man with long pink hair tries to step up to Endorsi. We learn that his name is Fonsiko Yarura. All of a sudden, Cherry crashes right in front of Yarura and tells Endorsi that she'll handle him. That's because it turns out that Yarura happens to be Cherry's designated sworn enemy. More strikingly, we found out that Yarura is Cherry's uncle. In fact, Yarura even calls Cherry by her real name, Fonsiko Irure. The two clash, as Irure taunts Cherry about still being hung up about something they refer to as only their dream decision. Meanwhile, Viol rushes Coon, so he stops his momentum by using his spear to turn the ground into ice and make his enemy slip. Aside from conviction, Coon also has gained the power of confidence, as he tells Viol that he'll have some fun with him for now. With that, Coon uses his lighthouse to trap Viol from above and forms a ring of ice around him to make sure there's no way he could escape. This whole display makes Daddy Edahn think that Coon has some talent. All the while, Rack continues eating rocks. Back at the 21st stage, Marco comes to Machini's rescue. While Young Jahad senses that Boro and the others are literally right underneath him, he prepares to blast him with his bangs, but stops when he notices Machini getting back on her feet and telling him that their fight isn't over yet. In fact, she has just gotten more hyped up as she charges electricity all over her body and prepares for another round with Young Jahad. In response, Young Jahad says that he really has to take her out if he wants her to stop pursuing him. At first, Young Jahad suspects that Machini is just trying to buy her allies more time to steal the mirror at the end, but he stands corrected when Machini stresses the fact that she didn't come here for any other purpose but to throw down with him. Props to Young Jahad too, because he gladly accepts the challenge, and in a cold-blooded line, tells Machini to come here so that he could kill her. Meanwhile, Hockney and the others are able to locate the wall that would lead them to the seed and the mirror at the end. However, they're forced to stop in their tracks when Huang catches up to them. Sachi tries to hit Huang with his Thorn Vine technique, but the big breeder just takes it without losing being harmed one bit. Plus, he even messes with Sachi's group and tells them that they're not going to find the mirror at the end, because it's not in the seed anymore. Hwang then goes back to the task at hand without giving any further details, declaring that it's time he annihilated them all. Just above them, Young Jahad has thrashed Masheni again. Marco tries to back up his sister by ambushing Young Jahad from behind, but he just gets wrecked when Young Jahad summons his needle to crush him. A moment later, Icardi also gets knocked out when Young Jahad sends a wave of Shinsu toward his hiding spot. Masheni channels all her remaining energy to get back up again and attack Young Jahad with electricity. Unfortunately, Masheni's body can't take any more to the point where her whole body gives out on her and collapses on the ground. Young Jahad then walks up to Masheni's near-lifeless body and tells her that he hopes she got what she wanted out of the scuffle, and as he leaves, we see Masheni smile. Shortly after, Hwang reports to Young Jahad that he's taking care of the intruders. Proving that he's a crappy manager, Young Jahad chastises Hwang instead of lauding the guy for a job well done. In any case, Young Jahad tells Hwang that all he has to do now is just wait for his upcoming showdown with Bomb. In the meantime, Bomb continues to channel more power within his orb, and he notices that he's getting stronger by the second. On the other hand, Rak eats so many rocks that its hands literally turn to stone. Dada Edahn sees this from a distance and wonders if Rak is a so-called native one. At the same time, Coon talks smack at Viol as he prepares to strike him down. In not as many words, he basically informs his opponent that he knows he's a glass cannon. That is to say, Viol might have a great offensive game, but his defense is Bush League at best. As such, a single hit from Coon's spear would be enough to take him out. However, Rak distracts Coon to show him his new rock hands before he could deliver the finishing blow on Viol. The two friends get into another one of their classic arguments as Coon tells Rak to spit out all the rocks he ate. In turn, Viol uses this distraction to make a move. All of a sudden, Dada Edahn appears in front of Coon and Rak to ask the reptilian warrior if he's a native one. Rak has no idea what Dada Edahn is going on about, so he gives an exposition dump about this. According to Dada Edahn, native ones are the descendants of a giant who once lived in the tower before he and his companions entered it. This giant split his body into 5 pieces to create these descendants, who became very powerful creatures able to rule and control the elements of the tower. As Dada Edahn puts it, Rak has just exhibited the same qualities whenever the native ones change their form. Coon isn't convinced about this and thinks that Rak is just some random alligator man who ate too many stones. After all, there are guys inside the tower who could change their bodies like that. But Dada Edahn goes on to tell them that Rak is different because it seems that an element is actually attaching itself to his body, which is almost the same as the abilities that direct descendants of the native ones exhibited back when they traveled with Edahn and his companions. What he doesn't tell Rak and Coon though, is that he also knows that Jahad had taken out all the pure-blooded descendants of the native ones, while the others that remained were cursed and eventually dispatched. Rak gets tired of Dada Edahn's lecture and tells him to just teach him how to use this newfound power of his. They then finally turn around to notice that Viol has escaped Coon's prison. Not too far away, Bomb continues to channel his orb as Viol arrives and attempts to backstab him. Bomb dodges and uses a technique called Endless Sky to create some space between them before telling his sworn enemy to just go away because there's no way he could beat Bomb now. In reply, Viol asks Bomb why he wouldn't just take him out. But their chat is interrupted when Coon arrives on the scene to finish his duel with Bomb's sworn enemy. Coon then answers Viol's question, telling him that he's nothing but a fake. According to Coon, he's nothing more than a nasty ghost. Viol lashes out after listening to this and tries to put hands on Coon. Rak steps in to use his sweet stone hands and block Viol's punches, as Bomb's sworn enemy rants about how lonely it was being a Fug Slayer candidate. Viol then tries to blast Rak and Coon with Shinsu, but Bomb stops him at the last second. They then have a heart-to-heart conversation where we find out that Viol became Bomb's designated sworn enemy because he feared being turned into a lonely version of himself, which happens to be Viol. In the end, Bomb gets some closure as he learns to accept his own fears. On the other hand, Viol has a flashback of his youth, which is basically Bomb's origin story, and remembers not to lose himself. Ultimately, Viol disappears after finding peace within himself, but from the outside, Dada Edahn witnesses Bomb absorbing his sworn enemy into his orb, noting that he just witnessed something rare. Somewhere else, on the hidden stage's glitch room, Hwang rushes towards someone's chambers. When he gets there, we surprisingly find that Hwang is talking to none other than Yurik Mizuno, who asks him if they're all ready. Hwang tells Yurik that he has managed to get a hold of the mirror fragment, but they're currently dealing with a few variables that came up. Yurik easily interprets one of these variables to be Bomb, and he expresses his interest in the boy. However, Hwang tells him not to do anything brash, and we find out that Yurik is data that's not even supposed to exist in this place. As such, he's not allowed to move until Hwang and Young Jahad get started with whatever preparations they need to make. Hwang promises that he'll be back to fetch Yurik once everything is set and leaves. Later, Hwang enters another room and takes on the form of Yura's supposed twin brother. We see that he has both Yura and the mirror at the end trapped inside this chamber as well. Back at the training stage, Bomb, Coon, and Rak reunite after defeating Viol. Dada Edahn turns to see that all the other sworn enemies have been dealt with too. We then see that Cherry single-handedly defeated Barrel's own sworn enemy and is just about ready to finish her duel with Yururi. As a matter of fact, even Dorsey is surprised to find out that Cherry is an absolute unit on the battlefield. Meanwhile, Cherry says some parting words to Yuri before taking him out. telling him that she's walking the path he wanted for her and that she's found the key to open the door to her dreams, referring to none other than Bomb. And with that, Cherry blasts her uncle away after telling Yurura that she might despise him, but at least she's living life as he wanted her to. With all the other sworn enemies defeated, Dorsey tells herself that she's the only one who hasn't taken out her own sworn enemy, the Snake Charmer. In the aftermath, Bomb and his friends regroup, while Daddy Yu hands them cups of post-fight coffee. Coon notices that Kisei has just disappeared. Daddy Edahn then praises Coon for doing well during his bout, and surprisingly, Coon tells him he's a great dad. But there's no time for patting one another on the back, as Daddy Edahn tells his students that it's time to get back to training. On the other hand, Daddy Edahn remains quiet about it when he realizes that his other kids, Misheni, Marco, and Icardi, are most likely dead by now. However, he's more worried about whether they were able to send Boro and the others through the mirror after they died or not. As such, Daddy Edahn resolves to prepare for the worst. He then calls out to Bomb and tells him to come with him to teach the boy how to get to the next stage. They fly up in the sky and Daddy Edahn creates a dome out of rocks. Bomb asks if Coon and Rak would be joining them for this session, but Daddy Edahn tells him that Daddy Yu will be handling their training, because right now he's about to teach Bomb a special lesson. Specifically, Bomb is about to learn Revolution training. Hearing the word makes Bomb think that it's the same thing as what the God of Guardians taught him at the rice pot. However, Daddy Edahn clarifies that he's barely scratched the surface of Revolution, and unlike the God of Guardians, Daddy Edahn himself has performed a revolution, so he'll be able to instruct Bomb about this more directly. The two prepare to start the lesson, but Daddy Edahn warns him that Revolution is a type of training that both awakens your own power while also being able to kill you. Regardless, Bomb is ready for the challenge ahead. Outside, Daddy Yu oversees Rak and Coon's training. At the same time, we find out that Rachel's avatar is currently with Joaquin, who is currently facing his own sworn enemy, a bunch of swords. Joaquin eventually defeats the swords and Huang appears in front of them. We then move the clock forward to the day before Bomb's main event with Young Jahad. Their arena is set, as Young Jahad looks on and gets impatient waiting for his scheduled opponent to arrive. Tomorrow comes, and it's one that everybody has been waiting for. The day of Young Jahad's duel with Bomb. Young Jahad continues to float near their scheduled fight venue, and Huang even gets some praise from the boss man for doing such a great job constructing the arena. What's more is that we find out Huang had been continually spying on Bomb and the others, as he reports to Young Jahad that they've been training this whole time. However, he does inform his boss that Daddy Edahn had hidden away Bomb inside his rock dome, so he doesn't exactly know what the boy's been up to. On the other hand, Young Jahad has an idea what Daddy Edahn had been teaching Bomb, and it piques his interest to see how strong he's gotten in the interim. An hour passes and we see Coon arriving inside the training grounds, the place with the mirror facing the arena. Huang asks him where the others are, and Coon tells the big breeder that he came here alone, since he's more than enough to finish the stage's grand quest. Huang takes umbrage at this and threatens Coon with raising the difficulty level of the quest. But as Coon puts it, he had already planned for anything Huang might throw at him, and with the small talk over and done with, Coon proceeds to activate the grand quest, where a large green monster appears in front of him. Back at the training stage, Daddy Edahn declares Bomb's training over, as he destroys the rock dome and tells the boy that it's time to go. Meanwhile, we see that Coon wasn't just blowing smoke out of his butt, as he effortlessly traps the Grand Quest villain in ice before shattering it to bits. And this is Coon we're talking about, so it's no surprise that he talks trash at Huang after turning the Grand Quest into a cakewalk. Not long after, Young Jahad senses that Bomb and the others have arrived. At the bottom of the arena, Huang welcomes their guests and tells them to follow him. Daddy Edahn notices that his kids still haven't shown up and concludes that they probably failed their mission. Shortly after, Huang leads the group to a room with a couple of elevators. He tells them that one of the elevators is to be boarded by Daddy Edahn and Bomb, and this will lead them to Young Jahad's location. On the other hand, the rest will take the other lift. Coon gives Bomb some words of encouragement before going their own ways, but this doesn't do much to ease Bomb's nerves. As he puts it, he might be heading to his own death. Bomb and Daddy Edahn reach the top floor of the arena where the duel will be taking place. Young Jahad welcomes Bomb, and the boy can feel that death is close. Meanwhile, Huang escorts Coon and the others to a different receiving area, where he starts talking smack to Coon. On top of that, Huang lets slip that Boro and the others didn't make it. Barrel, Rak, and Dorsey have no idea what Huang is talking about, but Daddy Yu does. On the other hand, Coon starts to get truly worried for Bomb after realizing that Sachi and their other allies did not retrieve the mirror at the end. To make matters worse, Huang reveals that he's prepared a little side event for Coon and the others. He opens another door and a sword comes shooting through the room to reveal that Joaquin, the Traveler, and Icarus have arrived here as well. Back in the middle of the arena, Young Jahad shows he's a cordial host, as he tells Bomb and Daddy Edahn about the place's interior design. But this is no mere small talk, as Young Jahad activates the arena and explains how their duel would go down. According to him, their competition would involve destroying at least 3 of the cores going around the rings surrounding the arena. Whoever does this first wins. On the other hand, falling off the arena or flying beyond the 3rd ring counts as an instant disqualification. After explaining this, Daddy Edahn figures out that Young Jahad is just bored, which is why he created an arena this big and grand. With the introductions finished, Young Jahad asks Bomb if he's ready to proceed with their duel. The two combatants then square up, and Young Jahad notices how Bomb looks more composed than before. He then asks the boy if he's no longer afraid of him. Bomb remains silent, but we find out that he's terrified right now. Still, he overcomes his fear knowing that he has to defeat Young Jahad. Young Jahad praises Bomb for his confidence in the face of impending doom and wastes no time opening their duel with a Shinsu blast. Bomb manages to dodge it by getting on his signature Shinsu platform and decides to avoid a head-on confrontation with his opponent. After all, his goal is to take out 3 of the 4 cores in the arena. Young Jahad shows us that he's basically giving Bomb a handicap by letting the boy take a 3-second break before clashing with him again. Afterwards, he immediately summons his needle and rushes at Bomb. Surprisingly, Bomb dodges it when Young Jahad tries to sneak in a cheeky jab from behind. This makes Young Jahad realize that the boy has indeed gotten stronger since he last met, so he ups the ante and rains fists all over Bomb. He doesn't dodge this barrage and instead gets knocked down towards the ground. Young Jahad then tells Bomb how impressed he is that he was able to dodge one of his punches. On the other hand, he lets the boy know that he's aware Bomb has performed a revolution. Young Jahad then goes on to tell him about his time at the Rice Pot back when he trained with the God of Guardians. As you might already know, this was when Jahad learned he was destined to become a king. He then asked Bomb what he saw when he underwent his training for revolution. In response, Bomb gets a flashback where he goes on another spirit quest during his training at Data Edahn's dome. This time, the creature living inside Bomb is accompanied by his sworn enemy, Viol. Bomb asks what Viol is doing here, but the creature has no idea either. But it doesn't take long for them to get down to business, as the creature correctly assumes that Bomb has come to this place after meeting another strong opponent. Both Viol and the creature are surprised to hear it when Bomb says that he thinks he needs enough power to rule the world. However, he clarifies that he's not planning on using it for world domination. Instead, Bomb just needs it to beat someone as strong as Young Jahad. Bomb then gets all introspective and starts asking who he really is after realizing that everyone has been making him fight Jahad this whole time. According to Bomb, he feels as if he was created for someone else's desire and will disappear once that goal is reached. In response, Viol gives him an answer. But we don't get the payoff from that scene just yet, as we move to the present and see that Bomb is still struggling against Young Jahad in spite of being able to summon his orb. On the other hand, Young Jahad does commend Bomb for learning this powerful technique, but as always, it's just an opening for him to brandish his own accomplishments. In the end, Young Jahad tells Bomb that he has a lot of potential, which is why he has to take the boy out now, before he reaches his prime. And with that, Young Jahad launches his needle right at Bomb. The weapon demolishes one side of the arena and reveals one of its cores too. More importantly, we find out that Bomb has survived Young Jahad's needle by using his orb to shield him from the impact. We then go to the flashback where we finally find out what Viol told Bomb. Specifically, he tells our hero that he is simply himself. In other words, Bomb doesn't have to keep waiting or relying on someone else to find his true self. Bomb remembers this advice in the present, and it's enough to give him a second wind, as he gets back on his feet to continue his duel with Young Jahad. Somewhere else, Coon confronts Icarus, but they're interrupted when Yurik emerges and tells everyone to take it easy because they're all going to have to work together now. As for what this work would be, Yurik reveals that they're going to destroy the scale that shows the past. Yurik then explains that he plans on using Coon and the others to lure the scale that shows the past to this room where he'll destroy it. We then discover that this isn't the real Yurik Mizuno. Rather, it's the data of his sworn enemy from when Yurik visited the hidden floor. As Hwang puts it, this sworn enemy ended up being very unstable because he wasn't copied completely. And we hope you're ready for this, because Hwang is about to give us another exposition dump that explains his and Data Yurik's relationship. According to him, everything was working just fine on the hidden floor until Yurik Mizuno showed up. Before then, this whole place was an artificial system where Hwang came and went to the other mirror to go between the hidden floor and the hidden floor. Hwang never questioned his existence then, but everything changed when Yurik arrived. As he puts it, Yurik was so powerful that even Hwang got scared of the guy when he first laid eyes on him. But Yurik told him that he wasn't interested in this virtual world. Instead, he was just here to clear the hidden stage. Knowing he couldn't do anything about it, Hwang let Yurik do as he pleased. As you'd expect, Yurik cleared the hidden floor and proceeded to save his cleared data afterwards. However, Yurik became furious when he found out that his clear data would remain unstable. That's because Yurik could not accept the fact that an improperly formed copy of himself would be left behind, even if it's just in a virtual space. Hwang goes on to tell everybody that Yurik got so mad because of this that he ended up smashing the mirror at the end to pieces. This created a chain of events that ultimately led to a temporary error throughout all of the hidden floor. This included Yurik's imperfect copy continuing to exist and the formation of the same room they're currently in, which is called the Bug Room, the entire territory of the mirrors. Hwang then used the Bug Room to keep all the erroneous data across all of the hidden floor. Eventually, Hwang found out that even he himself had also changed since the error that Yurik caused. Namely, Hwang started to become interested in data from the world outside of the hidden floor. As a matter of fact, it's the same curiosity that led him to dupe Yura's mom into possessing the body of her unborn son. And in the present, we find out that this whole long-winded saga has made Data Yu realize that Hwang is also talking about data people like Bodice. Hwang finally ends his monologue and reveals his ultimate goal. to get out of the hidden floor and become an actual human being in the tower. Hwang goes on to tell them that the scale of the past only appeared after the mirror's territory was split in two. The scale floats around a third space, where it analyzes the people who come into the hidden floor and turns them into data along with their own sworn enemies. All of this information makes Hwang believe that the scale of the past has an analytical transformation ability that allows it to turn people into data. The long and short of it is that Hwang wants to reverse engineer this thing, find a code that would turn him into a human. And then he'll show this code reflected in the scale's mirror to the mirror at the end, which would allow him to escape outside. Finally, Data Urich gets a word in after Hwang's exposition dump, and his reasons for trying to hunt down the scale isn't as contrived. As Data Urich puts it, he just wants to delete himself because he can't stand being in this imperfect form. And that, guys, is how Hwang and Data Urich found themselves working with each other. Coon and his friends understand everything they were just told, but he still has no idea what Icarus is doing with Joaquin and his teammates. Hwang has had enough of Icarus's crap, so he just casually outs her as Rachel. Then Hwang goes on to tell them that he'd let their other companions free if Coon and his allies help him and Data Urich with their plan. In the end, they agreed to the deal, and the whole group traverses the bug room. They dodge a few booby traps as they make their way across the bug room and eventually enter the hidden floor. Hwang dumps more exposition about this place, and it's basically everything we already heard. Specifically, that this place doesn't have any residents except for Young Jahad and the Big Breeders. A new piece of information we learn, on the other hand, is that Hwang scrubs his fellow Big Breeders' memories every time they start to malfunction. After that, Hwang tells Coon and the others the specifics of their plan. It involves having Coon and his allies go through the bug room and into the third space where the scale of the past resides and lure it. From there, the scale would realize that something is wrong and come after them. Hwang will then open a gate to that space, which will then make it realize that an unfamiliar space has appeared. The scale would go nuts trying to copy that place and adjust the balance of the hidden floor, which will then lead to it in that space to both temporarily start being sucked into the bug room. Once inside the bug room, Data Urich would destroy the scale of the past. Hwang adds that if everything goes according to their plan, he'll use a piece of the mirror at the end, which would give him and Data Urich what they each want. With everything finally set, Urich asks for volunteers that would lure the scale of the past. Back at the arena, Young Jahad manages to destroy his first core before realizing that bomb is nowhere to be found. He initially thinks the boy has given up, but is surprised to find out that he's been surrounded by Bomb's bangs. In fact, this turn of events shocks Young Jahad so much after realizing that Bomb was able to control this much Shinsu at once from a place that even he could not see. Still, Young Jahad counters Bomb's attacks with his own bangs easily. However, he gets another surprise when he sees that Bomb has flanked him with a Shinsu black hole sphere right in front of him. Again, Young Jahad counters this with his own Shinsu. The dust settles and he sees Bomb channeling another orb, prompting Young Jahad to ask the boy if they're really getting started with the real duel now. That's because Young Jahad has noticed that Bomb has added another layer to his new technique. To be precise, Bomb is now wielding an orb with a Shinsu black hole sphere inside it. Young Jahad gets even more excited at the prospect of going up against this technique, so he launches his bangs toward the boy. From a distance, Data Edahn watches the bout unfold, and even he can't help but be impressed that Bomb is holding his own in a straight-up Shinsu battle against Young Jahad. However, he does think that Bomb might be putting himself in more danger the more he ups the ante. It's then revealed in a flashback that Data Edahn coached Bomb how to read Young Jahad's certain quirks. Specifically, Data Edahn warned his student to watch out for when he grins and bares his teeth at him because this means Young Jahad is ready to get serious, which makes him uncontrollably powerful. In the present, Young Jahad does show his pearly whites, as Bomb notices that his enemy's Shinsu flow has gotten way stronger. Young Jahad then releases a technique called Jahad-style Shinsu Control, Golden Bomb, and drops it on Bomb. Bomb is forced to shield himself from the explosion, which only gives Young Jahad an opening for a powerful ability called Jahad-style lethal move, Rampage. This manifests in the form of a literally explosive right straight. However, Young Jahad is surprised to see that Bomb is able to defend against Rampage by using his orb to form a stone ball in front of him and use it as a shield. Young Jahad just gets more hyped as he crushes Bomb's rock shield and catches him with another thunderous blow. Bomb is sent flying, but Young Jahad notices something that he hasn't experienced in his previous bouts, that Bomb has actually managed to cut him. Young Jahad walks toward Bomb and tells him he knows what he just did. As it turns out, Bomb scattered the orb in the air the moment Young Jahad's attack got close to him. This allowed Bomb to create a temporary barrier between his face and Young Jahad's fist. Young Jahad thinks that Bomb might actually be a phenom after realizing that what he just did isn't something you learn during training, it's instinct. Somewhere else, on the hidden floor's third space, we find out that Coon, Rack, Rachel, and Joaquin were the ones who volunteered to lure the scale of the past. Coon and Rack get into another one of their classic arguments, which makes Rachel try to act like she's the boss and tell them to cut it out. As she puts it, you'll be killed immediately if you look into the mirror on the scale. Back at the arena, Young Jahad slugs it out with Bomb as he peppers the boy with haymakers. However, he notices none of his hits lands, all thanks to Bomb's fantastic high guard. Young Jahad commends him for his performance and even goes so far as to tell the boy that he's one lucky duck. That's because it seems that Bomb is able to reveal where the arena's cores are wherever he falls. Young Jahad then wonders how much longer Bomb would last during this duel. On the other hand, Bomb has another flashback to the heart-to-heart talk he had with Viol. Back then, Bomb got all glum about how he got so distracted by the fragments of himself that he couldn't find his truth. And the longer that it went on, the farther he got from his real self. This little trip down memory lane makes Bomb fail to notice that Young Jahad has slipped past him to destroy his second core. But while Bomb reaffirms that he's a big boy now who knows his true self, he also charges up a swirl of powerful Shinsu in front of him. Young Jahad, who's focused on destroying the core, fails to notice this and almost gets hit when Bomb releases a wave of devastating Shinsu toward his opponent. In fact, Young Jahad notices that Bomb's Shinsu has changed. But there's no time to review his findings, as the boy teleports in front of him and prepares to strike. Bomb has another short flashback reaffirming that he's finally found himself. He then uses a technique called 25th Night Style Extreme Black Winged Butterfly Attack. It lands clean on Young Jahad's face at point-blank range. Not only does it send him flying, but Young Jahad's mask is even broken from the impact. When he recovers, he sees Bomb getting ready for another clash, telling Young Jahad that he's now ready to fight like himself. Young Jahad gets even more excited. But this time we actually get to see him show genuine concern after noticing that Bomb has destroyed the second core and his needle, Lacalicus. We then get another exposition dump running down the specifications of Lacalicus. For one, Jahad got it as a reward for passing the test of the head pupil in the workshop. It's also known as the Needle of War because Jahad only uses it against people whom he acknowledges as true opponents. This powerful weapon has 3 stages of colors and shapes depending on its strength, but at the moment it's still white. This translates to Young Jahad considering Bomb as a serious enemy. From a distance, Dada Edahn remarks how he did not think Bomb could power up like this. He then remembers the time when he made his promise to Dada Yu. We find out that he actually rescued Dada Yu from a big breeder in the past. After that, Dada Yu coaxed him into having a nice little chat by bribing him with grape soda. During their talk, Dada Yu told him that the son of V was going to come to this place to defeat Young Jahad and liberate all the hidden floor. Dada Yu asked that Dada Edahn help him fulfill this prophecy. At first, Dada Edahn did not believe everything Dada Yu just told him. On the other hand, we find out that Dada Yu has it in bad for Young Jahad because he found out that the original Jahad turned his back on loyalty and justice, and is now ruling the world as king of the tower. He tried to further convince Dada Edahn back then by telling him that Bomb's arrival is a fate tied together by Arlene Grace. In the present, Dada Edahn starts to finally believe that Dada Yu's prophecy might just be true after seeing Bomb hold his own against Young Jahad. But this fight isn't over yet, as Young Jahad unleashes Jahad-styled Needle of War Lacalicus to summon a divine sea fish to attack Bomb. Back at the third space, Huang instructs Coon to lure the scale over to them. He'll then open a gate and cause a bug to trap it once they get in range. Coon then takes this opportunity to throw some of that classic shade at Rachel when he asks her what they should do. As expected, Rachel just folds and stays quiet, giving Coon an opening to rub it in her face that she has no idea what to do. So Coon takes it upon himself to make a move against the scale. He does this by taunting the scale so that it would attack them. Rachel complains about this plan, but Coon makes it known that beggars can't be choosers. After all, Bomb might get killed by Young Jahad if they don't get the mirror out of here soon. Still, Rachel runs her mouth and complains about how Coon might get them all killed. In reply, Coon tells her what most people think. He wouldn't mind if Rachel got killed. And since she's not the brightest bulb in the bunch, Rachel can only clap back by calling Coon a jerk. All of a sudden, the scale attacks him and Coon uses his lighthouse as a shield. It gives him just enough time to get out of the scale's way, but it easily destroys the lighthouse's shield before activating combat mode. On the other side, Barrel and Cherry wonder why Endorsi didn't come with Coon and Rack to this mission. They get all gossipy and think that it's because Endorsi is a prissy little brat, but in truth, we find out that the snake charmer is preventing Endorsi from doing anything that might harm Jahad. And no, she does not like this one bit. Meanwhile, Joaquin shows he's still a force to be reckoned with when he protects everyone by destroying the Scale's combat mode satellites using his Splash of the Dead technique. The problem is that the Scale also has the ability to regenerate, so it reconstructs itself as soon as it gets wrecked. Rack follows up with an attack from his spear and continues to taunt the Scale to lure it towards Huang and Dada Yurik. Back at the arena, Young Jahad becomes even more concerned when he notices that Bomb has just used his orb to devour the divine sea fish. Dada Edahn sees this as well and just continues to be amazed at his student's talent. Plus, we also see a pair of curious little horns made of light forming on Bomb's head after absorbing Young Jahad's divine sea fish. Meanwhile, Bomb enters a flow state where he now senses everything around him. He can tell that Coon and his other friends have disappeared somewhere, which makes him all the more resolute to end this duel against Young Jahad. So he spots the 2 closest cores and makes a move to destroy them. Bomb does this by using a technique called 25th Night Style Special Skill Ultimate Blue Shield, which drives back Young Jahad and forms a protective Shinsu dome around the arena. On the other hand, Young Jahad sees that he still has an advantage here. Bomb still hasn't mastered controlling his own powers. So as he always says, it's time to get serious. Bomb then spots the nearest core and makes a beeline for it. However, Young Jahad intercepts him and the two go for another clash. Bomb charges his fist with Black Shinsu, while Young Jahad summons Lycalicus' second form, Coelacanth, and blasts Bomb with a powerful energy stab. Back at the third space, Rack piggybacks on Joaquin as they continue to talk trash at the scale. It's super effective too, because the scale's proverbial gears get grinded after Rack roasts it. The scale chases the two and activates its mirror to take out Rack and Joaquin. In response, Rack musters up all of his energy. It culminates with Rack and Coon showing that they have great chemistry, as they come up with a technique called Rack and Coon's shared skill, 5-second freeze and petrification to block the scale's mirror. Coon then sees that the scale is in the bug room, so he calls on Huang to open the gate. At the arena, Edahn sees Young Jahad wielding Lycalicus' second form, Coelacanth. We find out that it's a thin weapon but has a wider attack radius compared to its first form. Not only that, but Coelacanth can shoot straight beams of light that also spread shockwaves. All of these qualities combined with Young Jahad's Shinsu control skill make it an unbelievably fast weapon. As Edahn puts it, Coelacanth is an unstoppable needle at the hands of Jahad. Meanwhile, Young Jahad manages to steal the core from Bomb to make their score 2-1. To make matters worse, Bomb has been wounded by his enemy's previous salvo, but there's not even time to recover, as Young Jahad goes after him again. Bomb barely dodges and is nearly taken off balance from Coelacanth's shockwave. He then gets flanked when he sees that Young Jahad has cornered him by summoning numerous bangs behind his back. Young Jahad blasts him with the bangs, but Bomb is able to protect himself by using Bomb-type Shinsu control skill, Orb Defense Mode. A second later, Bomb reemerges and notices that his blue shield changed form and now resembles a pair of wings on his back. But Young Jahad just continues to pour it on Bomb as he unleashes Jahad-style Shinsu control skill, Cosmos, to form a literal solar system just right above the arena. Young Jahad then tells Bomb that he truly thinks the boy has the potential to reach his original version's power levels. But what concerns Bomb more is when Young Jahad tells him that he knows what Huang and his friends have been up to, but it wouldn't matter, because they'll all end up losing their lives with regret anyway. Young Jahad ends his monologue by telling Bomb there's no way he would win against his original version and that it's his destiny to become the king before dropping Cosmos on the boy. Young Jahad is shocked to see that Bomb has survived this attack, as the boy drops a classic line, telling Young Jahad that a man who feels the need to tell everyone he's their king is no real king. And if he thinks that's truly his destiny, then Bomb has decided that his own destiny is to stop Young Jahad. Meanwhile, the scale gets trapped in the bug room and instinctively tries to bring balance to the hidden floor by copying it. As Huang had originally planned, an error occurs throughout the bug room, as Coon tells Rack that they should get out of there now. However, Coon suddenly feels excruciating pain as if his heart might stop at any moment. We then find out that Rachel actually did something useful earlier when she reveals that she pretty much planted a bomb inside Coon's heart back when she healed him. And now, Rachel couldn't let this opportunity pass to savor every moment that she might have just won against someone like Coon, as she tells him that she waited for this exact moment to take him out with her own hands. Back at the arena, Bomb feels the pressure knowing he's pressed for time if he wants to both defeat Young Jahad and help his best friends. On the bright side, he realizes that at least now he can go on a straight-up tussle with his opponent. Bomb then thinks of a way to increase his powers further and settles on using his thorn. That is to say, he plans on igniting this powerful weapon. A second later, both Edahn and Young Jahad are absolutely dumbfounded to see Bomb ignite his thorn by driving it through his own chest. Bomb then gets engulfed in Black Shinsu, and by the time he finishes his transformation, Young Jahad can tell that Bomb now has the power of the Administrator coursing through his body. And if you're still not convinced that Bomb has leveled up his game yet again, Edahn even comments that all the Shinsu around the area started to tremble when the boy transformed. In the middle of the arena, Bomb can feel his body straining from all the power he possesses, but he knows he can handle it. So Bomb gets back to business and channels Black Shinsu between his palms. He then releases a couple of large Shinsu waves from each hand, a technique he calls Bomb-style Shinsu control skill, Endless Sky. And although Young Jahad is amazed that Bomb's current power could shake the world, he still thinks the boy's actual skill level is the same as it was. This leads to Young Jahad committing the grave mistake of underestimating Endless Sky and just taking it instead of dodging. The result is that Bomb obliterates Young Jahad's entire right arm. We also find out that Young Jahad has no way to regenerate his lost appendage, since he's made up of data. But no biggie, because this just gets him more hyped. Young Jahad summons a technique called Second Cosmos, which is another solar system made up of Shinsu, while Bomb goes for Bomb-style Shinsu control skill, Rapid Fire Shinsu Cannon to counter it. And oh boy, does it work magnificently. Bomb is able to take out Young Jahad's Second Cosmos technique in an instant. As we already know, Young Jahad loves a good challenge, so instead of backing down, he commits to the clash and attempts to drive Coelacanth in Bomb's gut. Again, it doesn't work, as Bomb blocks it with Black Shinsu before summoning an ability called Triple Orb, duplicating his powerful weapon. Young Jahad sees this and couldn't help but appreciate how Bomb has made him feel alive again after so long. In response, he channels Lycalicus' third form, Leviathan, to meet his opponent head-on. Bomb then activates First Lorn Fragment Transcendental Skill, Remnants of Stars, Stardust when they clash. And we're not exaggerating when we say that Young Jahad relishes this moment, as the battle has made him realize how much he wants to go on another adventure. The entire arena is covered in white light when the two warriors meet. In the aftermath, Daddy Edahn sees that the resulting clash ended with a double knockout. He tries to call up to Bomb to wake up now, since one of the cores is right beside him. The two combatants then slowly open their eyes at the same time. While this is unfolding, we find out that Data Yurik and his crew have successfully trapped the scale of the past inside the bug room. It asks who Data Yurik is, and he answers by telling it that he's a bug character who's going to ruin the balance in the tower. Meanwhile, Bomb and Young Jahad get back on their feet at the same exact moment. Bomb spots the nearby core and digs deep to use what's left of his energy to destroy it. However, he's shocked when Young Jahad tells him that there's no need to destroy the core, since he concedes defeat. He then hands over a bracelet to Bomb and tells him that it's the thing that he's been looking for, the same object that Gustang told Bomb to get. As Young Jahad puts it, his original self left this with him, and now he's giving it to Bomb because Young Jahad wants his true self to see the boy outside in hopes of giving the original Jahad a new experience similar to their duel. But the big revelation comes when Young Jahad tells Bomb that this whole level will start collapsing once the scale has been smashed. At the same time, we find out that Coon and his team have been left alone in the third space, while Huang and the others escaped. Right now, Coon is out of it after what Rachel did to his heart. Cherry figures out that Huang and Rachel screwed them over from the start. Specifically, they made a side deal that didn't include anyone from Coon and Bomb's group. And Dorsey, on the other hand, struggles to make her body move to help out her friends. But as of this moment, she's still frozen in place. On the bright side, we do find out that Daddy-O has gone away to rescue the hostages. Back inside the bug room, the scale of the past grandstands and tells Daddy Yurik that there's no way he could defeat it. It even gets all dismissive and tells him to just disappear. Unknown to the scale, that's exactly what Daddy Yurik wants. But he wants to have a bit of fun first, so he dismantles the scale in the blink of an eye, making it realize that it's about to get an epic beating. After that, Daddy Yurik decides to get down to business and take the mirror. Out of desperation, the scale pleads for its life and even tells him that everyone will perish if he takes the mirror. But again, Daddy Yurik clarifies that's what he wanted all along. While this is happening, Huang arrives in a safe room where Yura and the mirror at the end are being kept. Rachel appears as Icarus, but Yura has no idea who this beautiful elf lady is. So Huang explains that it's actually Rachel and how they struck a deal. His freedom from the hidden floor in exchange for helping Rachel take out Coon and his friends. Yura isn't too happy about this, but Rachel tells her that it is what it is, and now Huang is on their side. Still, Yura isn't having any of Rachel's usual crap. In turn, Rachel goes on to reveal that she's doing all this to borrow Huang's power so that she can remain as a beautiful elf lady even outside the hidden floor. As a matter of fact, it's here we find out that Rachel isn't just a dumb, delusional, entitled piece of garbage. She's super vain too. She even goes so far as to burn herself by telling Yura that she never liked her ugly, weak body in the first place and that she's been meaning to get some work done this whole time, and she got it all thanks to Chung. With that trademark stupid look on her face, Rachel tells Yura that Icarus is her real body. On top of that, we also see how wrong in the head this scumbag is when she pushes Yura to affirm that she's looking beautiful and strong right now. As for Yura, well, suffice it to say she might have just realized that she bet on the wrong horse when she allied herself with this crazy bimbo. The tension breaks a bit when Daddy Yurik arrives with the mirror he stole from the scale. Daddy Yurik wonders why they're the only ones at their designated meeting spot, but Huang tells him not to worry about them and just proceed with their plan before Jahad notices. Daddy Yurik activates the scales mirror in front of the mirror at the end and a bright flash of light engulfs the room. We then go to the arena where Young Jahad reveals doing what Daddy Yurik and Huang just did won't help Huang escape the hidden floor. Instead, it will just destroy the whole place. According to him, the original Jahad created this system to prevent people from destroying the balance of the hidden floor and to get rid of this place in the event of an extreme situation. What's more is that this rupture that the mirrors caused would create a chance for the original Jahad to interfere with this place and destroy everything. All of a sudden, a mirror appears above the arena, which makes Young Jahad think that the scale's already been destroyed. A bolt of energy then rocks the entire arena, and Bomb recognizes it as the power of the original Jahad. Knowing they don't have much time left, Young Jahad tells Bomb to take the bracelet and reveals that it's actually a key containing the power to defeat the original Jahad. However, before Bomb could reach it, none other than the original Jahad appears before the two and takes the bracelet from them. Curiously, Jahad turns toward Bomb and tells him that he thought he had already killed him before. And while this is happening, we see all of our heroes witnessing the beginning of the end for the hidden floor. At the arena, Young Jahad asks his original self what he meant by what he just told Bomb. But instead of answering, the original Jahad just shows us how much of a monster he is when he starts mocking his data self. In fact, we find out that the original Jahad made it so that Young Jahad would be trapped inside this digital place alone forever. Original Jahad then tries to attack Young Jahad, but Daddy Edahn steps in to grab his old friend and whisk him away. Original Jahad asks Daddy Edahn if the original selves aren't on good terms outside the hidden floor, and Daddy Edahn makes it clear that they're not even on good terms in this place. Dada Edahn sidebars Young Jahad and tells him that he has a plan to defeat the original Jahad in spite of the fact that the guy is far stronger than they are. We then learn that Gustan gave Dada Edahn a pill called the Format. It's a MacGuffin that could turn the entire data world back into nothing once you swallow it. As Dada Edahn puts it, his original plan was to send Bomb out of this place, and then swallow the Format to turn this level back to nothing in the first place. But now he's come up with the idea that if they get the original Jahad to swallow it, the guy would disappear along with the hidden floor. We also find out that this isn't really the original Jahad's body in front of them. It's yet another digital copy of Jahad, albeit one that's from a time when he had already become king of the tower. So after explaining things to Young Jahad, Dada Edahn asks him if he could help him steal the bracelet and give it to Bomb, and then make the original Jahad swallow the Format. And just to entice his old friend, Dada Edahn tells him that this would be like starting a new adventure where they're going to send a new warrior who will fight the original Jahad as a final boss in the future. In the end, Young Jahad agrees. Back in the bug room, error messages pop up all over the place after the activation of the mirrors. Weirdly enough, Hwang changes his mind and decides to stop the hidden floor from collapsing. But it's too late, because a bunch of tentacles emerge from one of the mirrors and one of them skewers Hwang. As life gets snuffed out of him, Hwang recognizes that these tentacles belong to Jahad himself, who basically tells the big breeder that he was just waiting for some idiot to make a crack inside the hidden floor so that he could enter it. And you know that Hwang is about to die when he gets a flashback of his and Yura's dad and mom. A second later, Jahad's tentacle pulverizes Hwang into tiny bright stars. At the arena, Dada Edahn and Young Jahad take advantage of the fact that the original Jahad is distracted with Bomb, so they spring into action, with Young Jahad acting as the fisherman, while Dada Edahn provides long-range support as their spear bearer. Dada Edahn summons Coon Edahn-style javelin throw skill, a spear higher than the tallest mountain, Montana Azul, and hurls it at the original Jahad, but it doesn't even leave a scratch on the guy. In fact, he doesn't even notice that he just blocked Dada Edahn's attack, since he's too busy talking to Bomb. In the meantime, the original Jahad wraps his hand around Bomb's neck and tells the boy he didn't think he would get to kill him all over again. Bomb, on the other hand, notices that he can't move a muscle. Young Jahad sees this and tries to help Bomb, but he instantly gets repelled. Dada Edahn uses Edahn-style spear skill, Dawn of Lightning, to rain down electricity on the original Jahad. But this too has no effect on the guy, and with his grip on Bomb's neck growing tighter by the second, the original Jahad tells the boy not to be too sad, because he'll send his friends to the afterlife after he's done with him. Dada Edahn and Young Jahad muster all their remaining strength to help Bomb, but they stop in their tracks when they notice that the boy has unconsciously summoned his thorn. Not only that, but it's grown 100 times its original size. Everyone at the arena realizes that the Thorn is using a space-controlling skill that would send Bomb out of this place. Young Jahad then gets another big surprise when he sees Dada Edahn swallowing the Format. But Dada Edahn tells him it's cool. He just made adjustments to their original game plan. Instead of making the original Jahad swallow it, Dada Edahn has now decided to swallow it himself. As he puts it, their top priority now is to help Bomb get out of here, with obtaining the bracelet being their stretch goal. Dada Edahn tells Young Jahad that he'll focus the Format's effects on the original Jahad to free Bomb from his grasp, while Young Jahad focuses on grabbing the bracelet. With everything set, they spring into action and Dada Edahn manages to target the original Jahad's arm to set Bomb free. Back in the bug room, Jahad's tentacles try to attack Yura and Rachel, but Dada Yurik steps in to save them. He then tells the two to hurry up and get through the mirror at the end to return to the other side before they get erased along with the rest of the hidden floor. Somewhere else, we catch up with Wanyan, who sees a bright light in front of him. When the light dissipates, a talking sword greets him and tells Wanyan that he has the seed of a king inside of him. The sword then reveals that it's been waiting for Wanyan a long time, but our boy's takeaway from this is how cool it is to meet an actual talking sword. However, the sword gets them right back on track when it reminds Wanyan that he'll end up losing more things if he continues living his life this way. It then proposes a deal. The sword will give Wanyan all the power he needs to protect everything if he'll kill just one person. The sword then goes on to pitch this idea to Wanyan, telling him that his friends might lose their lives here on the hidden floor if he doesn't take this deal. On a more hilarious turn of events, we also see that Rachel isn't able to bring her hot Icarus form to the real world, as she turns back into her old pudgy self the moment she passes through the mirror at the end. Meanwhile, Dada Edahn is about to explode and turn this digital world into nothing. Young Jahad rushes toward his original self and tells him to give back the bracelet. Young Jahad even manages to stab the original Jahad, but the man just eats it up like nothing. Instead, the original Jahad asks his younger self why he's helping Bomb. Young Jahad and the original Jahad then have a heart-to-heart where Young Jahad pretty much reveals that he's doing this to help his original self find new spark in his life. As Young Jahad puts it, he noticed that his original self had become powerful but anxious when they first met each other. So to help him get over the slump, Young Jahad urges his original self to take on the challenge and make Bomb his new adventure. After all, that's what kings do. Jahad is almost convinced, but he tells his younger self that he's found out a way to play around with fate when he became as powerful as a god in the tower. And at that moment, we see Wanyan's hand taking the talking sword, sealing their deal. Oh, and we find out that Yuri and Kraka have been tussling just outside the doors of the hidden floor this whole time. They're only interrupted when a bright light shines from the same doorway. Back at the arena, Young Jahad and the original Jahad come to a compromise. As the real Jahad tells it, he'll be taking the bracelet with him. And if Bomb is truly qualified to be his next great adventure, then the boy would seek him in the tower and they'd get to face each other again. Somewhere else, Rack, Coon, and Dorsey, Barrel, and Cherry have been teleported to the hidden floor's receiving area, the empty space connecting it to the Hell Train. They see an opening that leads outside of the hidden floor and hurry towards it before the white light swallows up the whole place. The good news is that Dorsey has noticed that the snake charmer is no longer with her, so she instantly gets ready to transport everyone outside the hidden floor aboard Bong Bong. In another section of the area, we see that Boro, Sachi, and Hockney have also been teleported near the exit. Boro notices that Data Yu, Medley, and Bodice are no longer with them, which prompts Hockney to tell his companions what he heard before they disappeared. We then go to a flashback from just a few moments ago when Data Yu has just rescued them. Data Yu realizes that Data Edahn has swallowed the format and is about to shut down their digital world. Bodice asks him what this is all about, and Data Yu comes clean. He tells his old friend that this was part of his and Data Edahn's promise long ago, that he would swallow the format to turn the digital world back into the void. He only kept it secret because Data Yu didn't have the heart to tell Bodice about it. But then we get another reveal that Bodice has been actually deluding himself into thinking that Medley is his daughter. In truth, Medley is actually a location tracker the big breeders created to keep an eye on their every move. Bodice actually knew about this but chose to ignore it, since he actually truly loved Medley. Both Bodice and Data Yu then come to the realization that they have been lying to themselves in each of their own ways. But one thing's for sure, they both believed that their friendship with each other was the only real thing in this digital world that they're sure of. As Data Yu puts it, Bodice is the only data human who felt like a true human being to him. With that, the format takes them and the two disappear into nothingness. In the present, Hockney surmises that Data Edahn using the format must mean that Bomb was able to leave the hidden floor. The three get ready to head for the exit, as Sachi thinks that he wants to meet the original Han Sung-yu once they get back to the outside world. Somewhere else, Rachel, now back to her dumpy old body, along with Joaquin and Yura, are sent to the same area near the exit to the hidden floor. They spot the opening that leads to the Hell Train, as the divine sea fish that Gustain gifted Rachel propels them forward to safety. We also see Dorsey using Bong Bong to help herself and her friends escape the crumbling digital world. Meanwhile, back at the arena, an unseen force suddenly steals the bracelet from the original Jahad. Young Jahad sees this and recognizes that it's Gustain's treasure-eating stingray. Back at the hidden floor, Chung looks out of his apartment to see everything, including himself, gradually disappearing. And you know what? Chung is actually pretty at peace with this. After all, he just wanted sweet release from his captivity as a big breeder. Soon after, even the original Jahad, Young Jahad, and Data Edahn slowly fade out of existence, while Bomb is transported to the other side. Before disappearing, Data Edahn wishes for Bomb to meet his real self in the tower and ask him a question. What made them all change like that? A second later, and we see all our heroes and Rachel's team being spewed out of the hidden floor and back to the Hell Train. But there's one problem. Yuri and Kraka see that only Wanyan and Bomb have emerged from the same doorway they came through, while all their other companions are missing. Somewhere else on the upper levels of the tower, there's an altar for conveying Jahad's orders. A couple of people named Charlie, a ranker, and a man called Vice Altar Director stand in front of this altar. We find out that Charlie is a new hire, as the Vice Altar Director explains that this place is the oldest among the altars that serve Lord Jahad. We also learn that this altar is where Jahad remotely sends out orders to his followers, since he's always in his palace. Charlie then asks the Vice Altar Director why Jahad always gives out 3 orders at the same time. In response, the Vice Altar Director tells the newbie that Jahad always gives out 3 orders at once, and if any one of them is carried out, the remaining orders naturally disappear. As he puts it, this is Jahad's way of giving his followers a choice. Namely, it's a choice to select which future they want to have in the tower. Charlie is amazed by all this, but is a bit disappointed knowing that Jahad has not given out any of his 3 orders for centuries. Well, Charlie immediately gets his wish, as the altar wakes up and gives out Jahad's latest 3 orders. They're big ones too, because the 3 orders state, by order of the king, destroy or kill the following forces or people. 1. Fug. 2. Everyone currently riding the Hell Train. And 3. The Pobido family. And with that, both the Vice Altar Director and Charlie realize that Jahad has just declared war on one of the 10 great families. And with that, everyone, the penultimate storyline of the Tower of God Hell Train arc is over. What an amazing ride! I hope you guys enjoyed Bomb's fight with Young Jahad. Thank you for your support in the full Tower of God Explained videos. If you like them, please like, share, subscribe, comment on which part or video you've enjoyed a lot, and turn on your notifications to see more of our future videos. Thank you all for watching.